Chapter 1177. You've gone too far? How terrifying is the battle between the State Preceptor and Ren Duxing. With Boss's cultivation, once he enters the center of the battlefield, he will be instantly obliterated by the battle fluctuations. Not even his bones will be left. You're such a smart person. How can you not think of this? Fatso sneered. Mu Qing's face darkened. He shook his head and said, I really didn't think of it. Who are you trying to fool? Fatso was furious. He rushed forward angrily and slapped Mu Qing's face. Smack! A crisp sound of a slap was heard. Mu Qing's blood-stained face immediately swelled up, and there was a bright red palm print on it. Fatso, you'd better not fall into my hands in the future. Mu Qing roared hysterically. I'm afraid you'll never have such an opportunity. Fatso sneered. Then we'll wait and see. Mu Qing laughed sinisterly, his eyes flashing with murderous intent. The inner demons waved his hand and said, Let's talk about this later. Give me Dong Qing and Zhang Jin's coordinates. Mu Qing wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and a strange light flashed in his eyes again. Soon. He then gave the inner demon a new set of coordinates. The inner demons immediately left the ancient castle, opened a portal, and walked in. Fatso also immediately took action and destroyed Mu Qing's cultivation. Following closely, painful screams could be heard in the ancient castle. Although half an hour had passed, the battle between Ren Duxing and the State Preceptor was not over yet. The two of them fought fiercely in the sky. Dong Qing, the four sacred beasts, and the group of enforcers each took a side and watched nervously. Whoosh! Suddenly, a blood-red figure descended above Dong Qing's head. This person was the inner demons. As soon as the inner demons appeared, a terrifying murderous aura surged in all directions. Who's there? Whether it was Dong Qing, the four sacred beasts, or the group of enforcers, they all immediately looked up. Immediately, the group of people changed their expressions. How could it be Qin Feiyang? What's up with his cultivation level? What a powerful aura. What a terrifying murderous aura. If it weren't for the fact that he looked exactly like Qin Feiyang, they wouldn't believe that the person in front of them was Qin Feiyang. But the inner demons didn't look at them. As if it was nothing. He raised his head and looked at the sky thousands of miles away. However, it was too far away for him to see clearly. He could only hear the sounds of battle. Of course, he knew about Ren Duxing. He had two divine weapons. Kill him! A shout suddenly exploded, and it was filled with a murderous intent that couldn't be dispersed. The inner demons raised his eyebrows and looked in the direction of the voice. He wanted to see who was so reckless. It was a burly man in black, who had the cultivation of a 6-star combat emperor. The inner demon suddenly said, So it's the enforcers of the inner hall. I was wondering who had the guts to threaten to kill me. You're boasting shamelessly. Although I don't know why your cultivation suddenly became so strong, you'll definitely die in the face of so many of us. The burly man in black sneered. The inner demons looked at them one by one and laughed. You have a lot of people, but I'm afraid you can't kill me. Arrogant. The group of enforcers was furious. Boom! Waves of aura erupted like volcanoes, and the world suddenly trembled. Kill! The burly man in black roared. At that moment, the group of enforcers turned into streams of light, carrying a monstrous murderous aura, and charged toward Qin Feiyang. Seeing this, Dong Qing and the four sacred beasts looked at each other and quietly retreated. The current Qin Feiyang was behaving too strangely. They did not dare to act rashly before they figured it out. The inner demons naturally noticed the small movements of the man and the four sacred beasts, but he did not stop them. He only glanced at them with disdain and then looked back at the group of enforcers. There were 50 to 60 enforcers brought by the imperial tutor this time. In other words, there were 50 to 60 enforcers in front of him, and the weakest one was a 5-star combat emperor. If he did not activate the kill formula, he could only escape from such a terrifying lineup. But now, what he wanted to do was to kill them all in one fell swoop. He had planned to do so before he came. He wanted to use Ren Duxing to restrain the imperial tutor, while he took the opportunity to kill all his lackeys. The enforcers of the inner hall were the pillars of the great Qin Empire. Imagine, how would the imperial tutor and the emperor react if they lost 50 to 60 enforcers in one fell swoop? They would definitely go crazy with anger. This was the effect that Qin Feiyang wanted. Little bastard, die. The black-robed man took the lead and landed in front of the inner demons. His battle chi roared as he punched the inner demon's face. I have the power of the ancestral bloodline. You scolded me, which is equivalent to scolding the ancestral bloodline. You should be killed. The inner demons shouted coldly with an expressionless face. He raised his arm and slapped the black-robed man's fist. Golden light burst out. Ah! The black-robed man screamed on the spot as his arm was torn open. Immediately after, the inner demons pointed at the black-robed man. An invisible force turned into a vast ocean and drowned the black-robed man. In the blink of an eye, the black-robed man was torn apart by the invisible force, and his blood stained the sky. So powerful. Is he really Qin Feiyang? Dongqing and the 4 sacred beasts, who had retreated far away, were shocked when they saw this scene. He killed a 6-star combat emperor in less than 3 breaths. What kind of strength was this? When he left the ruins, he was only a 6-star combat saint. How did he suddenly become a 5-star combat emperor? What happened during the time when they were separated? The other enforcers were also shocked. An old man in black suddenly quivered and shouted, "He is no longer the Qin Feiyang we know. Don't hold back. Attack with all your might." Hearing this, everyone's body and mind trembled. They immediately spread out and surrounded the inner demons. They began to practice their battle arts. Boom! Clang! Roar! In an instant, battle arts that were dozens of feet long appeared in the sky. A destructive aura swept across the sky for hundreds of miles. These battle arts included all kinds of weapons and ferocious beasts. However, without exception, they were all perfect battle arts. Every battle art exuded an unparalleled ferocious power. Kill! Dozens of people looked at each other and shouted at the same time. Their killing intent soared through the sky. Boom! Dozens of perfect battle arts were like a meteor shower, attacking Qin Feiyang. So many killing moves. Is he still not dead? Dongqing whispered. However, a trace of doubt appeared in her eyes. In the face of such a situation, Qin Feiyang's expression did not change. He was not nervous or uneasy. Could it be that these 50 to 60 people together could not threaten him? One had to know. Among these 50 to 60 people, there were many 6-star combat emperors. There were even a dozen 7-star combat emperors. In the face of such a lineup, even an 8-star combat emperor would not dare to let down his guard. Let alone Qin Feiyang, who was just a 5-star combat emperor. Boom! Just as Dongqing was in doubt, the inner demon's body shook and a mighty dragon power broke out from his body. Dragon power. Dongqing's eyes trembled. That's right. This person had mastered a divine art. Although there was only one word difference between a divine art and a battle art, the difference in power was like heaven and earth. Is it the divine dragon skill? She stared at the inner demons. The inner demon's body was full of mighty dragon power. He looked around and his eyes were as cold as ice. Suddenly, the purple-gold dragon aura soared into the sky. A palm-sized divine seal instantly appeared. It is indeed the first move of the divine dragon skill. Dongqing's body and mind trembled. At the same time, the group of enforcers surrounding the inner demons saw the divine dragon seal appear and their pupils shrank. They were extremely nervous. Moreover, there was a trace of respect in their eyes. This was not respect for Qin Feiyang. It was respect for the first emperor. Don't panic. Although our battle arts are not comparable to a divine art, there are 6-star combat emperors and 7-star combat emperors among us. Their cultivation levels are much higher than his. I don't believe that we can't defeat the divine dragon seal if we join forces. An elder shouted. Hearing this, the other enforcers could not help but look forward to it. Hee. You actually want to shake the divine dragon seal. I have to say that you are really naive. But I can't blame you. Because those who don't have a divine art will never know how terrifying a divine art is. The inner demons laughed and his eyes were full of contempt. Boom! Clang clang! Roar roar! In the blink of an eye, the dozens of perfect battle arts suddenly attacked. For a moment, the place was filled with a strong wind and murderous aura. The inner demons was like a god of death, standing proudly in the wind. His blood-red hair danced behind him like a river of blood. Divine Dragon Seal, protect my divine body. Suddenly, he raised his head and roared. The divine dragon seal soared into the sky and expanded against the wind. Purple gold light burst out like a sun above the inner demon's head. Immediately, wisps of godly light fell from the sky, forming a purple golden light screen that was 3 feet wide. Qin Feiyong stood in the middle of the purple gold light screen and glanced at the enforcers disdainfully. Boom! The next moment, the dozens of perfect battle arts all blasted on the purple gold light screen. In an instant, there was an explosion of endless light. The figure of the inner demons was drowned in the light. Dongqing shook her head and said, "Even if the divine dragon technique is a divine art, you shouldn't be so arrogant." "No." Sage Monkey shook his head. "What do you mean?" Dongqing was surprised. She thought that even if Qin Feiyong didn't die this time, he would pay a heavy price. She didn't expect Sage Monkey to reject her idea. "You don't know how powerful the divine dragon technique is. Even if there are hundreds of perfect battle arts, they won't be able to hurt Qin Feiyong at all," Sage Monkey said in a deep voice. His eyes were full of envy for Qin Feiyong. "So powerful?" Dongqing was stunned. The power of the divine dragon technique is not something you can imagine. Qin Feiyong's cultivation is not enough now. He can't unleash the true power of the divine dragon technique. Sage Monkey said. "That's right. The divine dragon technique you see now is probably less than 1% of its true power," Sage Eagle said with fear in his eyes. "Yes. Back then, when Qin Batian used the divine dragon technique, the world trembled and everything surrendered. No one dared to fight with him. To be honest, although we are mortal enemies, sometimes we really admire him for being able to create such a terrifying divine art." Sage Lion and Sage Python also sighed. Chapter 1178. However, just as the 4 sacred beasts finished speaking, the inner demons, Qin Feiyong, who was drowned by the battle arts, suddenly began to weaken. "What's going on?" Dongqing was slightly stunned. Looking at the 4 sacred beasts, she said in surprise, "Didn't you say that those perfect battle arts can't hurt him? Why is his aura weakening now?" "We don't know either. It doesn't make sense. We are very familiar with the power of the divine dragon technique. Could it be that Qin Feiyong's divine dragon technique is fake?" The 4 sacred beasts were also very surprised. At the same time, the group of law enforcers surrounding the inner demon sensed that the inner demon's aura was weakening, and their faces were filled with joy. It seemed that this divine dragon technique was not invincible. Dozens of battle arts exploded and shone brightly. Whether it was the law enforcers or Dongqing, they could not see the real situation of the inner demons. They could only sense that his aura was constantly weakening. Moreover, the divine dragon seal floating in the air was also slowly disintegrating. Why is this happening? Qin Feiyong's current cultivation is similar to those law enforcers. With the divine dragon technique protecting his body, how can they hurt him? The 4 sacred beasts could not understand. They did not believe that the divine dragon technique that Qin Feiyong mastered was fake. Because the divine dragon seal in front of them was exactly the same as the divine dragon seal used by the first emperor in the past. The inner demon's aura was still weakening. Gradually, it was even difficult to sense his aura. "He's dead." Seeing that the aura of the inner demons was about to disappear completely, the law enforcers heaved a sigh of relief. Hee hee. But suddenly, a sinister laugh sounded. "He's not dead." The group of law enforcers was stunned. Bang! All of a sudden, the weakened aura of the inner demon soared to its peak state like a volcanic eruption. The fragmented divine dragon seal in the air also instantly solidified, releasing a mighty dragon aura. Immediately after, the inner demons took a step forward and appeared in front of everyone. There were no injuries on his body. His eyes were sharp, and there was no sign of weakness. "He was pretending just now," Sage murmured. "This little bastard is simply toying with those law enforcement officers like monkeys," Sacred Eagle said furiously. "Amazing," Dongqing whispered. Previously, she was still a little unwilling to believe what she had heard from the 4 holy beasts. However, the truth was right before her eyes now. 50 to 60 perfect battle arts were actually unable to harm a single strand of his hair. This divine dragon secret art was too terrifying. It had already reached a heaven-defying stage. In the meantime, seeing the inner demons walk out unscathed, the enforcers were dumbfounded and filled with disbelief. The inner demons glanced at them and laughed. Do you really think I'm dead? I'm just kidding. Hearing this, the group of law enforcement officers couldn't help but clench their fists tightly. Their eyes were burning with rage. Teasing them? What did he take them for? Monkey. It was simply unforgivable. A black-robed old man roared, "Activate your fighting souls and chop him into pieces." Roar. Rumble. Clang. Immediately. Following a series of earth-shattering explosions, the fighting souls continued to soar into the sky. There were beast souls, weapon souls, artifact souls. Every fighting soul exuded an aura that could destroy the world. After all, as law enforcement officers of the Inner Hall, their fighting souls were definitely not ordinary. Innate special ability, kill. The black-robed old man roared, his murderous aura soaring into the sky. In an instant, everyone activated their fighting soul's innate special ability and turned into a meteor shower, charging toward the inner demons. Hey! The inner demons grinned and suddenly soared into the sky. At the same time, the divine dragon seal instantly grew to thousands of feet tall, like a towering mountain. I'll show you the power of the divine technique. The inner demons waved his hand and the divine dragon seal descended from the sky. Rolling divine power roared in all directions, crushing everything in its path. Crack. Clang. Ow! In the blink of an eye, all the innate special abilities were annihilated. The law enforcement officers were no exception. Their bodies and minds were all trembling, blood spurting out from their mouths. Their eyes were filled with fear. So powerful. Dong Qing was also dumbfounded. The fighting soul's innate special ability was even more powerful than the perfect battle arts. However, it was so vulnerable in the face of the divine dragon seal. Run! Suddenly. It was unknown who roared in horror, but the group of law enforcement officers immediately panicked and fled in all directions. Weren't all of you very arrogant just now? Why are you running away now? The inner demon's face was full of disdain. With a wave of his hand, the divine dragon seal slammed into the ground. The ground trembled and the mountains collapsed. Abyssal fissures spread out in all directions like spider webs. In the blink of an eye, this place was shattered and full of devastation. Ah! At the same time, more than 10 5-star combat Emperor law enforcement officers could not dodge in time and were killed on the spot by the divine dragon seal. Their flesh and blood flew all over the sky. Although the others escaped, they were also sent flying by the aura of the divine dragon seal. Like meteorites, they crashed into the ground and screamed incessantly. With such terrifying means, who dares to compete with him? Dong Qing muttered to herself. Suddenly, she remembered what Zhang Jin had said not long ago. He wanted to trample Qin Feiyang under his feet. At that time, she did not doubt it. This was because Zhang Jin's cultivation had far surpassed Qin Feiyang's. However, now that she had seen Qin Feiyang's true strength, she could not help but wonder if Zhang Jin could really do it in the face of such a demon-level existence. That's all. The inner demons shook his head and glanced at those law enforcement officers who were in a sorry state. His face was full of contempt. Those law enforcement officers also got up one after another and gathered together. They raised their heads and stared at the inner demons gloomily. Suddenly, one of the black-robed old women had a look of surprise on her face. What's wrong? The other law enforcement officers looked at her suspiciously. The black-robed old woman said in a low voice, "Look at his glabella." Everyone was stunned and looked over. They found that there was a bloody word, kill, between Qin Feiyang's glabella. However, this was not the main point. The main point was that the word, kill, was actually absorbing the blood of their dead companions. What is he doing? The group of people was very surprised and bewildered. Boom! Suddenly, the word, kill, between the inner demons' glabella shot out a dazzling bloody light. The next moment, his cultivation level soared to a 6-star combat emperor. This also meant that the kill word had been fully activated. Looking at this scene, whether it was Dong Qing, the 4 sacred beasts, or the law enforcement officers, they were all dumbfounded. Could it be that the change in Qin Feiyang's cultivation level was related to the word, kill? The next moment, the group of law enforcement officers turned around and ran for their lives. That's right. They were scared. After seeing the power of the divine dragon seal, they no longer had the desire to fight. At this moment, Seeing that Qin Feiyang's cultivation level had increased by a small level, they naturally did not dare to continue fighting. Now, there was only fear and despair in their minds. Is this all the law enforcement officers of the inner hall can do? This is so disappointing. The inner demon shook his head and muttered. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Whoosh! He used the phantom steps and left behind a series of afterimages. He was like the god of death descending to the world, ruthlessly hunting down those law enforcement officers. No! I beg you. Ah! Every time he stopped, a law enforcement officer's blood splattered on the spot. Desperate screams resounded throughout the sky and earth. In less than 100 breaths, there were only 10 law enforcement officers left out of the 50 or 60. They were all 7-star combat emperors, but facing Qin Feiyang at this moment, they did not have the slightest courage to resist and fled for their lives. Seeing the inner demons following closely, a black-clothed elder shouted in horror, "Qin Feiyang, don't force us." "So what if I force you?" The inner demons sneered. They were already at the end of the road and still wanted to threaten him? The black-clothed elder was about to speak. An old woman next to him said, "Don't talk nonsense with him. Although he has the divine dragon technique, his cultivation level is a small level lower than ours. He can't keep up with our speed." "Yes, he has a perfect auxiliary skill, so do we. As long as we don't tangle with him, he can't stop us at all." The other 8 people nodded one after another. Hearing this, the black-clothed elder could not help but feel relieved. Is that really the case? But the inner demons behind them sneered. The 10 of them turned their heads to look at the inner demons in shock. Boom! Just as they turned their heads, the inner demon's body shook and activated the soaring dragon technique. His cultivation level instantly soared to 7-star combat emperor. His speed also soared by a large margin. How is this possible? The 10 of them were shocked. How could his cultivation level increase? This is impossible. From a 6-star combat saint to a 7-star combat emperor, it is a whole level higher. This is too ridiculous. In the distance, Dongqing and the 4 sacred beasts were also dumbfounded. How did he do it? How is it? Are you desperate? The inner demon smiled and glanced at the black-clothed elder and the others. His eyes were full of mischief. Damn it! Why is this happening? The black-clothed elder roared. Because I am Qin Feiyang. Those who offend me must die. The inner demon's eyes were cold like a blade. Looking at the blood-red eyes of the inner demons, the black-clothed elder and the others could not help but shiver. The black-clothed elder roared, "Don't force us to perish together with you." Perish together with you? Are you trying to say that you are going to self-destruct? Hee. Then hurry up and self-destruct. Don't waste time. The inner demon shook his head and smiled contemptuously. He raised his hand and waved it. The red sword aura surged and 50 sword shadows appeared. With a shocking sharpness, they slashed toward the 10 of them. Go! The black-clothed elder gritted his teeth and roared at the other 9 companions. He then turned around and rushed toward Qin Feiyang. Elder Wu! Seeing this, the other 9 people immediately roared anxiously. Go quickly! The black-clothed elder shouted without turning his head. He stared at the inner demons, Qin Feiyang, and his eyes flashed with madness. Looking at the black-clothed elder's back, the 9 people felt an inexplicable sadness in their hearts. As the law enforcers of the inner hall, when did they fall into such a situation? They had to rely on their companions to self-destruct to fight for the hope of survival? How sad! We can't let elder brother Wu die in vain. Go quickly! An old woman roared. She used a perfect auxiliary technique and left without looking back. The other 8 people took a deep look at the black-clothed elder. They also turned around and ran for their lives. The inner demons looked at the 9 people and looked at the black-clothed elder. His face was full of sarcasm. Little bastard, go to hell together. The black-clothed elder smiled coldly. His body suddenly exploded in the void. Chapter 1179. The self-destruction of a 7-star combat emperor was terrifying. It was no exaggeration to say that even a 9-star combat emperor would not be able to escape death. But the inner demons was not nervous at all. Swish! In an instant, he disappeared in the void. Saint Monkey sighed, "It's no problem to use self-destruction to kill others, but it won't work on Qin Feiyang." Yes, Dongqing nodded. Qin Feiyong had the castle. Even if all of them self-destructed together, it would not be a threat to him. Of course. Everyone understood that the black-clothed old man's self-destruction was not to kill Qin Feiyong, but to buy time for his companions to escape. Elder Wu, don't worry, you won't die in vain. The old woman and the others who had fled to the distance looked back at the place where the black-clothed old man had self-destructed, their eyes flashing with hatred. Return to the imperial capital immediately and report this to His Majesty. The old woman opened a portal. The imperial preceptor was restrained by Randuxing and could not protect himself, so they could only leave the magic Dragon Mountain range and return to the imperial capital to get reinforcements. Seeing this, Saint Monkey's expression changed, and he shouted, "We can't let them leave, otherwise when the reinforcements from the imperial capital arrive, not only will Qin Feiyong be in danger, but we will also be in trouble." Don't worry, Qin Feiyong will not let them return to the imperial capital alive. Right now what I'm worried about is that after we kill those law enforcers, Qin Feiyong might also kill us. Dongqing said worriedly. Saint Eagle said, "Don't panic, act according to the situation." During the conversation, the old woman and the others had already entered the portal. At this time, the inner demons also appeared. He stood on the broken ground below, looking at the portal in the distance, his eyes flickering. It was definitely too late to intercept them now. But it was impossible to slip away from his hands. Swish! He waved his hand, opened a portal, and walked in without looking back. When the portal dissipated, Dongqing and the 4 saint beasts breathed a sigh of relief. Dongqing said, "He must have gone to intercept those 9 people. What should we do now?" Sage Monkey said in a deep voice, "Let's find a place to hide first. When His Majesty kills the Imperial Preceptor, we won't have to be afraid of him anymore." 1 man and 4 beasts immediately soared into the sky, and rushed towards a forest. They had been scared out of their wits by the inner demons. Without Randuxing, they didn't dare to face the inner demons. In the sky above the capital of He State, whoosh! A blood-red figure appeared out of thin air. It was none other than the inner demons, Qin Feiyong. Surging murderous aura covered the sky and covered the earth. The entire city was immediately engulfed in a sea of killing intent. Everyone was alarmed and terrified. Everyone was in danger. Who? A loud shout was heard. A black-clothed young man flew into the sky with a serious expression on his face. It was precisely Tan Wu. After parting ways with Qin Feiyong, he went straight back to the city to visit his friends and family. At this very moment, he was drinking with some friends in a restaurant. However, he did not expect that a murderous aura would suddenly descend. This murderous aura made even him feel fear. However, when he flew into the sky and saw Qin Feiyong, a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. Was this Qin Feiyong? The inner demon said telepathically, "Give me the coordinates of the teleportation altar from He State to the imperial capital immediately." Tan Wu was surprised. "Cut the crap. Hurry up." The inner demons thought to himself, a bloody light surging in his eyes. Tan Wu's eyes flashed, and he immediately gave the inner demons the coordinates secretly. The inner demons also immediately opened the teleportation portal and walked in. What a terrifying murderous aura. Is he Qin Feiyong? Why is he different from the last time he appeared? 5 or 6 young men and women flew into the sky and stood beside Tan Wu, asking with lingering fear. Tan Wu shook his head. The Qin Feiyong who had just appeared, except for the same face, was completely different from the Qin Feiyong of the past. Therefore he couldn't be sure. A young woman asked, "Then what did he come to the city for?" Tan Wu said, "I don't know. He left without saying a word." Now, he definitely had to cut ties with Qin Feiyong, otherwise, a disaster would befall him. In a canyon, a white-haired old man and a middle-aged man stood side by side on a mountain peak, looking a little upset. These 2 people. The white-haired old man was Tan Wu's master, the previous mansion master. The middle-aged man was the current mansion master. And the one who made them upset was Qin Feiyong. They couldn't understand why Qin Feiyong suddenly came to their He State. Swish! Suddenly, 9 bloody figures appeared. It was the old woman and the others. What happened? Seeing the 9 people, the 2 men's faces changed, and they hurried to greet them. How could the old woman and the others have the mood to pay attention to them now? After appearing, they immediately rushed down. In the middle of the canyon, there was a small wooden house, and the teleportation altar was under this small wooden house. The 9 people rushed into the small wooden house one after another. What's the situation? The white-haired old man and the middle-aged man stood above the canyon, looking at each other. Under the small wooden house, there was a secret room. The teleportation altar stood in the middle of the secret room, emitting a cold luster. The old woman and the others entered the secret room, looked at each other, and immediately activated their battle chi to revive the teleportation altar. Boom! Just as the teleportation altar was being revived, a shocking murderous aura suddenly descended above the canyon. Not good. He's chasing us. The 9 people's faces changed. Go up quickly. The old woman shouted. The 9 people quickly jumped onto the teleportation altar, and the inner demons were also roaring. Hurry up! Hurry up! Hurry up! Just as they were about to be teleported away, a terrifying dragon aura spread over the canyon. The inner demons stood above the canyon, and above their heads, the divine dragon seal shone brightly. Not far away, the white-haired old man and the middle-aged man felt the terrifying divine aura, and their bodies trembled, and their faces turned pale. People like them, when had they ever seen a divine art? So they were scared silly. And Qin Feiyong's current appearance, as well as the murderous aura all over his body, made them extremely terrified. Destroy! In the blink of an eye. The inner demons glanced at the canyon below and spat out 2 words coldly. Rumble! The divine dragon seal instantly carried a destructive aura and blasted into the canyon. With a loud bang, the entire canyon was instantly turned into ashes, including the small wooden house and the secret room. The old woman and the others who were about to be teleported away were sent flying, and blood spurted out of their mouths. No. They were in despair. They were so close to returning to the imperial capital, but now they could only watch as the teleportation altar was getting further and further away from them. They were filled with hatred. Qin Feiyong, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost. The old woman roared, and her physical body suddenly exploded. Seeing this, the other 8 people smiled miserably and self-destructed their physical bodies as well. 9 7-star combat emperors self-destructed at the same time, and it was not a joke. Even the inner demons did not dare to take any chances. He immediately turned around and dashed toward the white-haired old man and the middle-aged man. If he did not take action, these 2 people would definitely die. When he arrived in front of the 2 of them, he grabbed their shoulders and instantly disappeared without a trace. Rumble! Crack! That terrifying airwave swept across heaven and earth. The mountains and rivers shattered, and the earth collapsed. This was a scene of misery and suffering. Even the capital of his state could feel the destructive aura. Only the teleportation altar was like a stubborn stone. No matter how big the impact was, it was not damaged at all. Inside the ancient castle, the inner demons lowered his head and crossed his arms in front of his chest, as if he was thinking about something. The white-haired old man and the middle-aged man still had a terrified look on their faces. They had never seen such a scene in their lives. Therefore, it was difficult for them to calm down in a short period of time. Time passed quietly. The storm outside gradually calmed down. Master, Mansion Master, where are you? Suddenly, an anxious shout could be heard in the castle. The inner demons finally raised his head, glanced at the white-haired old man and the middle-aged man, and then left the ancient castle. He immediately saw Tan Wu standing alone in the sky, his face full of anxiety. Tan Wu also sensed the inner demon's aura at the first moment. He immediately rushed to the front of the inner demons, grabbed the inner demon's clothes and roared, "Why are you doing this?" "What do you mean?" The inner demons raised his eyebrows. "You were the only one who came here previously. If you didn't do all of this, who did it? Tell me immediately. Have you already killed my master and the mansion master?" Tan Wu roared, his eyes bloodshot. It could be seen that he cared a lot about the white-haired old man and the middle-aged man. The inner demon said expressionlessly, "If I say that I've already killed them, what do you want?" Tan Wu's face turned pale as he roared hysterically, "What did they do wrong? Why are you treating them like this? Answer my question." The inner demons shouted with a majesty that could not be defied. Tan Wu said word by word, "If you really killed them, I definitely won't let it go, even though old Senior Qin has groomed me." "Not bad, you have a backbone." The inner demons nodded. With a wave of his hand, the white-robed old man and the middle-aged man appeared out of thin air. Master? Mansion Master. Seeing the two of them appear unscathed, Tan Wu could not help but be stunned. You have to thank me. If not for me, they would already be dead. The inner demon smiled coldly. Then, he opened the teleportation gate and left without looking back. Tan Wu glanced at the teleportation gate, turned to look at the white-haired old man, and asked, Master, what's going on? The two of them were still in a daze. Master! Tan Wu shouted loudly. The white-haired old man's body trembled before he came back to his senses. He looked at Tan Wu and said, Why are you here? Tan Wu said, Just now, I was in the state capital and sensed a very terrifying destructive fluctuation coming from here, so I rushed over to take a look. What exactly happened? It's Qin Feiyang. He's chasing after the enforcers of the temple. Those 9 enforcers even self-destructed. The white-haired old man whispered. At the thought of Qin Feiyang's methods back then, he could not help but tremble. His old face was also filled with fear that could not be resolved. Chasing after enforcers. Self-destructing. When Tan Wu heard this, his brows furrowed tightly together. But very soon, he thought of a rough idea. After all, he knew many things and it was not hard to imagine. However, he was truly shocked in his heart. Not only did he chase after the enforcers of the inner hall, he even forced them to self-destruct their bodies. When did this guy possess such tyrannical strength? Suddenly, the white-haired old man looked at Tan Wu and said suspiciously, Just now, I seem to have vaguely heard you say that someone has nurtured you. What's going on? Tan Wu's heart skipped a beat. Seeing this, a deep sense of uneasiness surged in the white-haired old man's heart as he said in a deep voice, Are you colluding with Qin Feiyang? No. Tan Wu hurriedly waved his hands. If not, why did he save us? The white-haired old man frowned. This question. Tan Wu's brows furrowed tightly. He really did not know how to answer. The white-haired old man said, I want to hear the truth. The middle-aged man also looked at Tan Wu with a serious expression. Tan Wu rubbed his head and looked at the two of them. These things are very complicated and difficult to explain clearly. In short, you have to remember that everything that you saw today must be buried in your stomachs forever. Otherwise, at this point, Tan Wu's gaze darkened slightly. Otherwise what? The two of them looked at him nervously. Tan Wu said, Otherwise, when Qin Feiyang comes to kill you, even I won't be able to stop him. The two of them trembled. Tan Wu continued, Also, the people from the capital will definitely come to interrogate you. At that time, no matter what they ask, you have to say that you don't know. All right. The two of them nodded. Tan Wu glanced at the two of them and raised his head, looking in the direction of the demonic Dragon Mountain Range. Chapter 1180. At the same time, the hinterland of the magic Dragon Mountain Range. Ren Duxing and the Imperial Preceptor were locked in a fierce battle, and divine blood was sprinkled all over the sky. The battle between the two had reached its climax. The divine might swept in all directions, shattering the earth and shaking the sky. And somewhere in the void 1,000 miles away, a blood-colored figure appeared out of thin air. It was the inner demons. He looked up at the sky and laughed sinisterly. Fight to your heart's content. After killing those small fries, I'll come and collect your corpses. A cold light flashed in the eyes of the inner demons. He retracted his gaze and scanned the surrounding mountains and rivers, looking for traces of Dongqing and the 4 sacred beasts. The law enforcers of the inner hall had been wiped out, and now it was naturally Dongqing and the others' turn. Moreover, compared to those law enforcers, he wanted to kill Dongqing and the 4 sacred beasts more. Did they run away? But can you run away? Not finding any trace of Dongqing and the others nearby, the inner demon smiled sinisterly. With a slight thought, Wolf King appeared out of thin air. The inner demon said, Track their scent. Wolf King closed his eyes and searched carefully. As soon as he opened his eyes, a bright light shot out. Obviously, he had already tracked the scent of Dongqing and the 4 sacred beasts. But just as he was about to speak, the inner demons waved his hand and said, Wait. Wolf King looked at him in confusion. The inner demons waved his hand and activated the concealment technique. 1 man and 1 wolf instantly disappeared without a trace. Seeing this, Wolf King was even more puzzled. Let's not talk about Dongqing first. Let's talk about the 4 sacred beasts. They are all old monsters who have lived for tens of thousands of years, or even longer. Naturally, they are not stupid. Now they must be hiding somewhere, watching us. If they see us looking for them, what do you think they will do? The inner demons asked. Wolf King said, "Is there a need to ask? They will definitely escape from the Magic Dragon Mountain range immediately." Yes. Although I don't know where they are hiding now, they must be a little far away from us. If they open the portal and leave now, we won't be able to stop them. The inner demons sneered. I see. So you activated the concealment art to deceive their eyes, so that they wouldn't be able to guess what we were trying to do. Wolf King said in realization. That's right. The inner demons nodded. Wolf King's pupils contracted. Although these guys were inner demons, sometimes, they were even more terrifying than Qin Feiyong himself. The inner demons sneered, "Let's settle old and new scores with them today. Let's go." Wolf King's eyes also flashed with a cold light. Simultaneously, 200 or 300 meters away, there was a desolate valley. The valley was not very big, but the mountains on all sides were very majestic. At this moment, Dongqing and the 4 sacred beasts were standing on top of a mountain on the right side of the valley, watching the inner demons and Wolf King from afar. But suddenly, seeing the inner demons and Wolf King disappear, Dongqing's heart skipped a beat. Where did they go? The sage monkey said, "That goes without saying. He must have gone to the castle." No. Dongqing shook her head. What do you mean? The sage monkey frowned. Dongqing said in a deep voice, "If I didn't go to Iron Ox Town, I would think so too. But now it's hard to say." Iron Ox Town? The 4 sacred beasts were suspicious. I remember that when I was chasing after Zhang Jin, he also suddenly disappeared. We all thought that he went to the castle, but we didn't expect that in the next moment, he actually appeared in front of Zhang Jin. Dongqing said, "There's such a thing?" The 4 sacred beasts' faces changed. Yes. Dongqing nodded, then frowned and said, "I'm thinking, can his castle be moved now?" The 4 sacred beasts looked at each other. Not good. Suddenly, Dongqing's face suddenly changed, and she shouted, "Let's leave the Magic Dragon Mountain range." Leave. The 4 sacred beasts were stunned. That's right. You saw it just now. Before Qin Feiyong disappeared, Ruffian Wolf appeared. Dongqing said, "Yes. Is there a problem?" The 4 sacred beasts were puzzled. This is a big problem because Ruffian Wolf has the ability to track scent. It appeared just now. Maybe it was tracking our scent. If that's the case, then Qin Feiyong's disappearance is deliberately to deceive us, so that we don't know what he wants to do? Maybe he's already in front of us now. Dongqing scanned the void in front of her, and her eyes became incomparably sharp. Hearing this, the 4 sacred beasts' hair stood on end. Their eyes were full of vigilance as they scanned the void around them. If it was the previous Qin Feiyong, even if he stood in front of them, they would not be afraid. However, the current Qin Feiyong was too scary. Even if they had the body of a pseudo-god, they did not dare to be careless. The more they thought about it, the more flustered and scared they became. The sacred monkey shouted, "Leave the Magic Dragon Mountain range immediately." Dongqing took out a portal and quickly opened it. The 4 sacred beasts immediately turned around and rushed into the portal as if they were running for their lives. Just as they were about to be teleported away, a terrifying murderous aura emerged, and the portal instantly shattered. Dongqing and the 4 sacred beasts immediately fell out of the shattered portal, but without any delay, they immediately gathered together, back to back, looking nervously at the void. The void was still empty. Dongqing, I found that I really underestimated you in the past. You can actually guess my intentions. Suddenly, a teasing voice sounded. Dongqing's face sank and she shouted, "Don't pretend to be mysterious, get out here." As you wish. The inner demon snickered. The next moment, the inner demons and Wolf King both appeared in the void in front of them, only 3 or 4 meters away from them. How is it? Wolf King grinned. What do you mean? Dongqing said in a deep voice. Wolf King laughed and said, "The feeling of seeing hope, but instantly falling into despair." How is it? Dongqing said gloomily, You did it on purpose?
Yes.
In fact, we have been standing here for a long time. The reason why we didn't kill you immediately is to let you think that you can leave the magic dragon mountain range alive. Wolf King said. Dongqing's eyes were gloomy. Boom! The 4 sacred beasts suddenly went berserk and pounced toward the Wolf King. As for the current Qin Fei Yang, they did not have the slightest bit of certainty. Thus, they shifted their target to the ingrate. The white-eyed wolf was just a battle saint. With their strength, it would be easy to take down the white-eyed wolf. As long as they could take down the white-eyed wolf, Qin Fei Yang would naturally submit. But what they didn't know was that the one controlling this body was the inner demons. Even if they captured the white-eyed wolf, the inner demons would not hesitate. Moreover, the inner demons would not give them the chance. Boom! He took a step forward and stood in front of the Wolf King. His surging aura roared. He didn't even make a move. With just a wave of his aura, the 4 sacred beasts and Dongqing were sent flying, crashing into a group of rocks behind them. Dongqing was even worse. Although her cultivation had already stepped into the War King, her physical body was far inferior to the 4 sacred beasts. After all, no matter what, the bodies of the 4 sacred beasts were all pseudo-gods. This level of impact would at most cause them pain for a while, but it wouldn't cause them any real damage. However, Dongqing, facing Qin Fei Yang's current aura, was immediately covered in blood. Let's split up. She got up in a sorry state and gloomily looked at Qin Fei Yang and Wolf King. Then, she shouted at the 4 sacred beasts and turned around to escape. The 4 sacred beasts looked at each other and immediately turned into a stream of light, fleeing in 4 different directions. If they split up and escaped, if they were lucky, 1 or 2 of them might be able to escape. If they were to escape together, there was no doubt that they would all be wiped out. However, the idea was good, but the reality was cruel. The inner demons' body shook, and the Emperor's aura roared out, rushing toward the woman and the 4 sacred beasts. In the blink of an eye, the woman and the 4 sacred beasts were imprisoned in the void. Break for me! Dongqing roared and instantly broke the restraint of the pressure and continued to escape. Roar! Chirp! The 4 sacred beasts roared again and again, forcibly breaking through the pressure. The inner demons was slightly stunned. Then, he patted his forehead and shook his head. I forgot that you have all opened the gate of potential. Dongqing must have opened the 7th level of the gate of potential. As for the 4 sacred beasts, it was even more impossible for Qin Fei Yang to imprison them with his current aura. After all, they were pseudo-gods. Moreover, they had followed Mu Tianyang for a long time. They must have opened the gate of potential long ago. They might even have opened the 8th level. The inner demons waved his hand, and Yen Wei, Viper, and Dan Wangkai appeared. Then, the inner demons looked at the 3 of them and said indifferently, "Pick one, I will take care of the rest." Whether it was his eyes or his posture, they were full of disdain for Dongqing and the 4 sacred beasts. Yen Wei glanced at the woman and the 4 sacred beasts, and his gaze locked onto Dongqing. Because the last time in the ruins, he and Dongqing had not determined the winner. Whoosh! Immediately, he used the 9 steps of the heavenly demon and chased after Dongqing. Dan Wangcai's opponent was the sacred eagle. As for Viper, he naturally chose the sacred python. The reason was very simple. The sacred python was an old poisonous creature. The inner demons glanced at the 3 of them and laughed. Then the sacred lion and the sacred monkey are my opponents. Leave the sacred lion to me, Wolf King suddenly said. The inner demons was startled. Wolf King said confidently, "Although my cultivation is not as good as it, I am still confident that I can restrain it." That's fine. The inner demons nodded. Boom! Wolf King activated the Berserker's Fury, and instantly turned into a muscular wolf. His aura soared as he used the Void Escape Step and rushed towards the sacred lion. Not bad. It's about to grow up. The inner demons glanced at the backs of Wolf King and Yen Wei, and a rare smile crept onto his face. Whoosh! Following closely. His gaze turned cold as he took a step forward and chased after the sacred monkey like lightning. The sacred monkey's cultivation had already recovered to the level of a 3-star combat emperor. With the perfect support technique, its speed was comparable to a 7-star combat emperor. However, Qin Fei Yang's cultivation had already reached the level of a 7-star combat emperor, under the buff of the soaring dragon art. So, when he activated the phantom steps, He appeared in front of the sacred monkey in less than 10 breaths. Seeing this, the sacred monkey's pupils constricted as it immediately turned in the air and fled in another direction. The inner demon shook his head and laughed mockingly. He took a step forward and stood in front of the sacred monkey again. The sacred monkey didn't dare to fight. It tried its best to escape, but no matter how hard it tried, it couldn't get rid of the inner demons. The inner demons teased, "A dignified fake god can only run for your life now. Do you feel especially aggrieved?" "Shut up," the sacred monkey roared. "When you were at your peak, you probably wouldn't even look at someone as weak as me, right? Actually, I didn't expect that there would be such a day where I would force a fake god to jump up and down. I feel that even if I die now, it's worth it." The inner demons chuckled and continued to torture the sacred monkey's heart. Chapter 1181. "Bastard, I'll kill you." The holy monkey exploded. It stopped running away. With a roar, it turned around and swung its millstone-sized fists at the inner demons. The inner demons sneered and stepped forward to counter with a palm. Boom! The fists and palms met. The holy monkey was sent flying and crashed into the ground. With a loud boom, a deep pit appeared. But it immediately got up and rushed into the sky, laughing. "I have the body of a false god. With your strength, you'll never be able to kill me. Do you understand?" After saying that, it waved its fists and its battle aura was like a waterfall. 2 huge fists flew across the sky, exuding a shocking divine power. "Divine art!" The inner demons narrowed its eyes. Hee. As a former false god, is it strange to have a divine art? Go to hell. The holy monkey laughed angrily. The 2 huge fists shook violently in the void, exuding a destructive power, and blasted toward the inner demons. "So what if I have a divine art? Killing you is as easy as slaughtering a dog." The inner demon smiled disdainfully and raised its hand to slap the fists. A golden light surged out and covered the sky. It was dazzling. Boom! When the golden light and the 2 huge fists collided, the 2 huge fists suddenly changed sides and blasted the holy monkey's huge body like 2 mountains. "Ah!" The holy monkey screamed in pain and was blasted into the ground again. However, its divine body was too strong. Even after such a terrifying impact, it was not injured at all. It jumped up and looked at Qin Feiyong, laughing. "I have a divine body. You can't kill me. Instead, you will be exhausted to death by me." Clang! However, before it finished speaking, an ear-piercing sound resounded in the sky. The holy monkey looked in the direction of the sound. The arrogance on its face disappeared and was replaced by fear. A dagger was floating in front of the inner demons. The dagger was pure white, like a peerless jade. It was very beautiful, but no one dared to look down on such a dagger. Because it was Chang Shui. The inner demons grabbed Chang Shui and said playfully, "Now let's see if your skin is tougher or if my Chang Shui is sharper." Finished speaking, he turned into a streak of light and charged towards the saint monkey. The monkey's expression changed. One had to know. This dagger could easily cut through Mu Tianyong's divine bones, let alone a mere false god's body. It turned around and fled. The arrogance from before was gone, leaving only fear in his heart. But with its current speed, how could it escape the pursuit of the inner demons? However, the inner demons did not kill it directly. He chased after it and waved the Chang Shui. Suddenly, blood gushed out, and a wound appeared on the saint monkey's back. Blood was gushing out. "This is the blood of a false god. Don't waste it." The inner demons quickly used the kill formula, and the blood flowed towards his glabella. When the blood was absorbed by the kill symbol art, he couldn't help but be startled. He found that the blood did not disappear after being absorbed by the kill formula. Instead, it was transformed into a pure energy and flowed into his body. Moreover, he could clearly feel that the energy was strengthening his body. He even found that his cultivation was increasing little by little. Although the increase was not obvious, it was there. In other words, the blood could not only strengthen his body, but also increase his cultivation. This discovery made him wild with joy. He never expected that the blood of a false god would have such a wonderful effect. Suddenly, he thought of another question. Since the blood had such an effect, wouldn't the saint monkey's flesh and blood be even more effective? He raised his head and looked at the saint monkey that was running away frantically. A bright smile appeared on his face. He had not tasted the flesh and blood of a divine beast. Whoosh! He used the phantom steps and caught up with the saint monkey in the blink of an eye. He slashed down and a piece of divine beast meat fell. The inner demons grabbed the divine beast meat and then took out the nether devil flame. He chased after the saint monkey while roasting the divine beast meat. Very soon, the aroma of roasted meat spread out. The aroma of the divine beast meat was more fragrant than the meat of ordinary beasts. What's that smell? It smells so good. The saint monkey also smelled the aroma of the roasted meat and turned to look suspiciously. When it saw the divine beast meat in the inner demon's hands, the saint monkey was so angry that it spurted out blood. Qin Feiyang, you've gone too far. It roared again and again. He actually roasted the meat on its body in front of it? This was too much. A warrior would rather die than be humiliated. It suddenly turned around and rushed toward the inner demons. Its fierce eyes were filled with blood. That gaze was as if it could not wait to cut the inner demons into 8 pieces and destroy their bones. However, the inner demons just glanced at it indifferently, and then lowered its head to look at the divine beast meat. Its brows were tightly knitted together. Although the aroma of the meat wafted out, this piece of divine beast meat was still raw after being roasted for so long. After all, this is divine beast meat. How can an ordinary alchemy fire cook it? I'll just have to make do with it. The inner demons shook its head and threw the piece of divine beast meat into its mouth. Immediately, an indescribable aroma overflowed in its mouth. It smells so good. The inner demons closed its eyes and revealed an intoxicated look. And this meat contained an extremely large amount of extremely pure energy. This energy flowed along its meridians and rushed to its limbs and bones. It felt that whether it was its physical body or spirit, they were instantly sublimated. Puff. However, looking at the inner demons leisurely tasting its divine beast meat in front of it, the saint monkey was so angry that a mouthful of blood spurted out from its mouth. It was crazy. After roaming the world for tens of thousands of years, it had never suffered such humiliation. The inner demons opened its eyes and commented, "This taste is not bad. It's just that this meat is too rough." Puff. The saint monkey spat out another mouthful of blood. Its fierce eyes were blood red. "Bastard, die with me!" It howled towards the sky and rushed in front of the inner demons. Without hesitation, without any nostalgia, it directly self-destructed its physical body. The inner demons was shocked and hurriedly hid in the ancient castle. Although the saint monkey was now a 3-star combat emperor, its physical body was a real false god's body. In other words, it was equivalent to a false god's self-destruction. The self-destruction of a false god, who dared to treat it as a joke. Boom! An earth-shattering sound suddenly exploded in this place. Woo-woo! Kacha! Immediately, a violent wind blew in this area. The void crazily collapsed and the earth shook violently. It was like an unprecedented earthquake. What's the situation? At this moment, whether it was Wolf King, Yan Wei, or Dongqing and the 3 saint beasts, they all involuntarily stopped and looked over. Without exception. When they saw the apocalyptic scene, their faces changed and they frantically ran for their lives. Rumble! Wind and thunder intertwined and the sky changed color. Within the range of their vision, the giant peaks were like rice straws in a paddy field, collapsing one after another. In an instant, they turned into nothingness. What exactly happened? Where are Qin Feiyang and the Saint Monkey? Chapter 1182. At the same time, at the top of the sky, 2 divine consciousnesses surged over. It was the divine consciousnesses of the State Preceptor and Ren Duxing. The explosion of the Holy Monkey was too powerful. Although they were thousands of miles away, they could still sense it. Therefore, they immediately released their divine consciousnesses to check the situation. Everything was within their divine consciousnesses. What's the situation? If he didn't look, he wouldn't have known, but when he did, he was shocked. The 2 of them were petrified. Where were the law enforcers? Why were they all gone? Did the Holy Monkey also disappear? Very soon, they found Yan Wei, Wolf King, Viper, and Dan Wangkai. Of course, they knew that Wolf King and Yan Wei were Qin Feiyang's men. In other words, Qin Feiyang was here. However, they did not find any trace of Qin Feiyang on the battlefield. What the hell is going on? The State Preceptor murmured. Could it be that all the law enforcers were killed? How could this be possible? One had to know. The law enforcers brought here this time were at least 5-star combat emperors. With the strength of Qin Feiyong's group, even if they joined forces with Ren Duxing's subordinates, it was impossible. Suddenly, in the mountains below, a figure appeared out of thin air. It was the inner demons. He looked at Yan Wei and the rest and shouted, "Why are you all standing there in a daze? End the battle quickly." When he came out of the ancient castle, he sensed the divine consciousnesses of the state preceptor and Ren Duxing. In other words, everything here had been seen by the two of them. Therefore, this battle could not be dragged on any longer. It had to be ended as soon as possible in case the two of them came here. Boom! Hearing the voice of the inner demons, Wolf King and Yan Wei quivered and immediately attacked Dong Qing and the 3 sacred beasts with all their might. Dong Qing and the 3 sacred beasts also began to counterattack. A fierce battle began again. It is indeed Qin Feiyong. But how did his cultivation suddenly become so strong? At the top of the sky, Ran Duxing and the state preceptor were in disbelief. The kill character formula was Qin Feiyong's strongest trump card, so it had always been kept a secret. The only time he revealed it was when he stole the divine crystals and was caught by Mu Qing. In order to escape, he told Mu Qing the secret of the kill character art. However, not long after, the real space-time portal was snatched away by the snow python. Therefore, Mu Qing had no way to inform Lu Xingqian. As such, neither Ran Duxing nor the imperial tutor knew the secret of the kill formula. Simultaneously, the inner demons glanced at Dong Qing and the 3 holy monkeys with a cold glint in their eyes. Whoosh! Suddenly, he used Phantom Step and rushed toward Saint Lion like lightning. The white-eyed wolf's fighting soul and skills were indeed powerful, but his cultivation was not as high as the holy lion's. Seeing the inner demons charging over, the holy lion couldn't help but feel anxious. "Get out of my way!" With a roar, Battle Aura rolled out and a huge beast claw appeared out of nowhere. As soon as the beast claw appeared, the sky changed color. The terrifying divine power shook the heavens. Obviously, this was a divine art. Humph! The white-eyed wolf snorted coldly, and that huge body expanded again. In the end, it turned into a muscular wolf that was hundreds of feet long. Its ferocious power was impressive, and its aura skyrocketed. This was no longer the fury of the berserker, but the fury of the mad god. Although there was only a difference of 1 word, the difference in power was like heaven and earth. Because the fury of the berserker was only a superior battle art, but the fury of the mad god was a perfect battle art. Of course, compared to the holy lion's divine art, the fury of the mad god was still a long way off. However, the white-eyed wolf did not retreat at all. It waved its mountain-like fist and punched the beast claw. Boom! Without any suspense, the white-eyed wolf's fist was instantly shattered, and flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Its huge body also cracked open, and it was dripping with blood. Like a meteorite, it smashed into the ground below. How dare you use a mere battle art to fight against a divine art? You're overestimating yourself. The holy lion smiled disdainfully, and the beast claw slammed down, aiming at the white-eyed wolf. If this attack hit, the white-eyed wolf would definitely die. Haven't you figured it out yet? You're the ones who overestimate yourselves. However, at this moment, the inner demons descended from the sky like a divine weapon and slammed down on the white-eyed wolf. A golden light roared out. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening sound, the beast claw immediately turned in the air and slammed into the holy lion's body. Roar! The holy lion wailed on the spot and was sent flying. However, like the holy monkey, it had the body of a false god. This kind of attack was nothing to it. However, in the face of the inner demons, it had no courage to fight, just like the holy monkey. It turned and fled. The inner demons looked down at the white-eyed wolf and frowned. "Are you all right?" The white-eyed wolf shook its head. It was not all right. Its injuries were very serious, and it was even life-threatening. However, it did not want to admit that it was very depressed. In the past, no matter what, it had always fought side by side with Qin Feiyong, and they had gone through thick and thin together. However, it slowly realized that it could no longer help Qin Feiyong. It had been working very hard and had been cultivating in seclusion. However, the gap between it and Qin Feiyong had not narrowed. Instead, it had widened. It was fine for a short period of time, but after a long time, even it could not help but start to doubt its own ability. It was precisely because of this that it took the initiative to ask to fight the Holy Lion. It wanted to prove itself. However, the result made it even more discouraged. If the inner demons had not saved it in time, it would have died in the hands of the Holy Lion. Looking at the white-eyed wolf, the inner demons raised its eyebrows and said lightly, "With your talent, you will become an overlord of the world sooner or later. However, if you are discouraged now, your cultivation and achievements will stop here forever. And I don't need someone like you by my side." The white-eyed wolf's gaze trembled. The inner demon said, "There is still a long way to go. Whether it is me or the original body, we need you to accompany us." The white-eyed wolf looked up at the inner demons, and its eyes were filled with tears. The inner demons waved its hand impatiently and said, "Stop being so pretentious. Go to the castle and recuperate." The white-eyed wolf nodded, and its body quickly shrank. It laughed and said, "I didn't expect you to have such a gentle side." "Gentle?" The inner demon's face twitched. With a wave of its hand, it sent the white-eyed wolf to the castle. Then, it looked up at the fleeing Holy Lion, and its eyes became extremely sharp, like the edge of a blade. "How dare you hurt my companion? How many lives do you have to kill?" He held the Xueqi in his hand, used the phantom steps, and chased after the Holy Lion at lightning speed. He stomped on the Holy Lion's back. The Holy Lion's huge body suddenly fell down involuntarily. The Holy Lion panicked and roared in horror. "What are you doing?" "And the Holy Lion, what did you do to it?" "It was too weak. I only roasted a piece of its meat, and it self-destructed." The inner demon snickered. "What? Self-destruction?" The Holy Lion's gaze trembled. At the top of the sky, Ren Duxing could not help but tremble. Not only could he observe the situation below with his divine sense, but he could also hear Qin Feiyong's voice. He actually forced the Holy Lion to self-destruct its divine body. He was furious. Swoosh! He directly abandoned the Imperial Advisor, turned into a stream of light, and rushed down with the two divine artifacts. "Where do you want to go?" However, with a flash, the Imperial Advisor appeared in front of Ren Duxing and sneered. "Get lost!" Ren Duxing roared, his divine sense surged, and the two divine artifacts with the power to destroy the world rushed towards the Imperial Advisor. "Seeing your subordinates being killed one by one, you must be very anxious." "Despair." The Imperial Advisor smiled coldly. The full moon rose, the jade pendant awakened, and collided with the two divine artifacts. Boom! The two's bodies shook, blood spurted out, and they each retreated a few hundred feet. Ren Duxing shouted, "Not to mention me, those lackeys you brought. I'm afraid they have already died in his hands." The Imperial Advisor's eyes darkened slightly, and he snorted coldly. "Even if what you said is true, it doesn't matter because now, we only have one common enemy, and that is you." Finished. The Imperial Advisor took the initiative to attack Ren Duxing. "Haha. For me, you actually joined forces with Qin Feiyong. You are really magnanimous." Ren Duxing laughed loudly, full of ridicule. "Don't treat this Imperial Advisor as a fool. Your little trick of sowing discord is useless." The Imperial Advisor sneered. Boom! A divine battle once again broke out in the sky. Below! Accompanied by a loud bang, the Holy Lion smashed heavily into the ground, and all the bones in its body were about to fall apart. The inner demons was still standing on its back, like a demon god, causing people to tremble. "No one will have any objections if you kill the monkey, but why do you have to humiliate it?" The Holy Lion roared. "Humiliate?" The inner demons was taken aback. The Holy Lion roared, "You roasted its meat in front of it. Isn't that humiliating? You can't be so shameless. It turns out that you are also so weak. It seems that I have overestimated you divine beasts." The inner demon shook its head, waved Xueqi, and mercilessly slashed down. Blood splattered as Xueqi directly entered the Holy Lion's mind. Ayo! The Holy Lion howled miserably. For the first time, it felt the aura of death. The inner demons laughed. "Don't worry, after you die, I will take good care of your divine meat, such as marinating, roasting, stewing. You demon, I will fight it out with you." The Holy Lion roared crazily, and a destructive aura rushed out from its body. Although the Holy Lion's cultivation had not recovered to the level of a war emperor, as a pseudo-god, it could still self-destruct. Do you think I will give you the chance to self-destruct? The inner demons sneered, let go of Xueqi, and then slapped the handle of Xueqi's blade. The Xueqi was like a sharp arrow, penetrating the holy lion's head from the front to the back, and blood spurted out like a fountain. And the sea of consciousness and soul were shattered on the spot. Bang! The holy lion immediately fell to the ground, dead, and breathed its last. Damn it! Qin Feiyang, we will not let you go even if we become ghosts. Seeing that the holy lion was also killed by the inner demons, the holy eagle and holy python that were fighting with Dan Wangkai and Viper immediately flew into a rage. At the same time, their hearts were flooded with fear and despair. Facing the current Qin Feiyang, did they really have a chance of winning? Boom! Viper and Dan Wangkai looked at each other from a distance. Taking advantage of the holy eagle and holy python's distraction, they punched the two beasts' heads with all their strength. The two beasts immediately howled miserably and smashed into the ground below. For a moment, the ground cracked, and dust covered the sky. Who's next? At the same time, the inner demons grabbed Xueqi, stood up, and looked at the two holy beasts and Dongqing, with a strong bloody light in his eyes. Facing the inner demon's gaze, Dongqing's body and mind trembled, and her face was pale. The two holy beasts were also trembling. He was too strong. The current Qin Feiyang was already ridiculously strong, and he also had the indestructible Xueqi in his hand. How could they fight against him? In the end, the inner demon's gaze was fixed on the holy eagle. Boom! He stepped into the air and said coldly, 10,000 years ago, the first emperor was merciful and spared your lives. You should cherish it. Hee hee, the holy eagle laughed. But it was incomparably miserable. It seemed that this time, it was really the end of the road. Chapter 1183. The sacred python glanced at the sacred eagle and also soared into the sky. It looked at the inner demons and said, Eagle is right. In time, even if you don't surpass Qin Batian, you can at least become an existence on the same level as Qin Batian. The inner demons raised its eyebrows. At this time, shouldn't the two sacred beasts be afraid and beg for mercy? Why were they still so calm? The sacred python and the sacred eagle looked at each other from a distance, and a smile appeared in their eyes. There was a trace of relief in this smile. Immediately, the sacred eagle looked at the inner demons again and said, We also admit that as long as the castle is in our hands, no matter what we do, we won't be able to kill you, but, speaking of which, the sacred eagle's eyes suddenly became sharp, and it laughed sinisterly. But we can kill your companions and make you suffer for the rest of your life, blaming yourself. The inner demons was shocked. Looking at the two sacred beasts' eyes, its expression suddenly changed. It shouted to Dan Wangkai and Viper, They are going to self-destruct, run! What? Self-destruct? The two of them suddenly changed color. They immediately used the perfect auxiliary battle technique, turned around, and fled without looking back. At the same time on the other side, hearing the inner demons' shout, Dongqing and Yanwei also flew away at the same time. Lord, we'll take our leave first. Qin Feiyang, we will wait for you in hell. Explode! The two holy beasts roared furiously, and their bodies exploded in the void. A wave of qi that could destroy the world instantly surged out in all directions. Bastard! Ren Duxing's roar immediately resounded in the sky, filled with sorrow and killing intent that couldn't be dispersed. The inner demons was also extremely anxious. He used the phantom steps and rushed toward Viper. Because Viper was the closest to him, he would save as many as he could. The billowing airwaves rushed over. Feeling the terrifying destructive power, Dan Wangkai and Viper were so scared that their faces turned ashen. Faster! The inner demons roared. The two of them used all their strength, but the airwaves were getting closer and closer. Poof! Before the chi wave could even get close, the two of them were already severely injured. Blood spurted out of their mouths, and their bodies were instantly mangled. Without a doubt, if the two of them were engulfed by that wave of air, they would definitely be torn apart in an instant and turned into ashes. Master, please save us. The two could not help but call for help from the inner demons in despair. The inner demons' faces were as dark as water. Frankly speaking, when he was just born, he had no feelings for anyone, including the people around Qin Feiyang. However, after spending a long time with people like Wolf King and Viper, he had developed feelings for them that were hard to part with. At this moment, seeing that Viper and Dan Wong-kai were in a desperate situation, he wished he could grow a few pairs of wings and rush over to rescue them. But he knew that this was unrealistic. This feeling of powerlessness is so unbearable. He clutched the clothes on his chest. His heart ached, and his eyes were filled with pain. Don't give up. There's still the castle and Xueqi. Suddenly, a shout resounded in his inner world. This sovereign. The inner demon's body trembled, and his eyes suddenly lit up. That's right. There was still the castle and Xueqi. Why was he in despair? With a thought, the castle emerged. Then he grabbed the castle and threw it out together with Xueqi. If you don't save them today, I'll throw you into the latrine pit and suppress you for 10,000 years. I'll let you stink up to the sky. After roaring at Xueqi and the castle, the inner demons decisively retreated. Without the castle, he did not dare to go deep. Otherwise, he would also die under that wave of air. Whoosh! The castle and Xueqi pierced through the sky, flying toward Dan Wong-kai and Viper respectively. The two of them also risked their lives to rush towards the castle and Xueqi. As for Yan Wei, there was no need for the inner demons to save him, because the battlefield was separated. Yan Wei and Dongqing's battlefield was hundreds of miles away from Viper and Xueqi's battlefield. They had enough time to escape. Boom! Crack! The rolling airwaves were earth-shattering, destroying everything in a frenzy. It was as if doomsday had arrived. It was terrifying. Puff! Viper and Dan Wong-kai were beyond recognition. They were covered in blood. They felt desperate. Although Xueqi and the castle were flying toward them, would they make it in time? They had unlocked the door of potential and mastered the forbidden technique. They had a bright future ahead of them. They did not want to die. The last bit of faith made them grit their teeth and hang on. However, they did not know how long they could hold on. It was likely that they would collapse in the next moment. The inner demons could not help but clench his fists. He looked at the two of them nervously. The airwaves were getting closer. Their flesh and blood flew everywhere. Even their bones were exposed. Gradually, the two of them stopped. They turned around and looked at the rolling airwaves helplessly. Their eyes were filled with despair. Although they did not want to die, they had no strength to continue running. Boom! Ah! After a few breaths, the airwaves were like the ruthless Grim Reaper. They did not stop at all and directly drowned the two of them. At the same time, Xueqi and the castle were swept away by the airwaves and disappeared. What happened? In the distance, Yan Wei was also paying attention to the situation here. He was nervous and uneasy. Dongqing took the opportunity to escape. The inner demons shouted, "Kill Dongqing now!" Understood. Yan Wei nodded. He turned around and looked at Dongqing's back. His eyes were filled with coldness. The first move of the tiger taming technique, tiger roaring in the sky. With a low roar, he opened his mouth and let out a deafening tiger roar. Suddenly, an invisible sound wave appeared. It was like a tide, destroying the mountains and rivers and swallowing Dongqing. Ah! Dongqing screamed. Blood spurted out from her ears like arrows. The tiger taming technique was the perfect killing technique that the mysterious madam had given to Yan Wei. The second move, tiger out of the cage. Yan Wei roared again. His battle chi surged and turned into a huge black tiger that was hundreds of feet long. It roared and charged toward Dongqing. Don't force me. If you force me, I will also self-destruct. Dongqing shouted. If you dared to self-destruct, you would have done so when the sacred eagle and sacred python self-destructed. Why wait until now? Yan Wei sneered. The huge tiger had already arrived in front of Dongqing. Its terrifying aura made Dongqing despair. The Dong family has not been avenged. How can I die here? When she thought of the tragic death of her clansmen and the destruction of her family, a strong hatred emerged in her heart. It overcame her fear and despair. Boom! She took a step back and stared at the huge tiger in front of her. Her hands quickly formed seals. In the blink of an eye, a square seal appeared in the sky. It was as if it was condensed from ice and emitted a shocking cold current. At the same time, her cultivation had also undergone a transformation. She was no longer a 1-star combat emperor. She was a 2-star combat emperor. The second move of the frost technique, Mysterious ice seal. Destroy. She roared. The mysterious ice seal broke through the sky and collided with the huge black tiger. Boom. With a loud sound, the two battle techniques were destroyed in the air. Puff. A trace of blood flowed out from the corner of their mouths. You were indeed hiding your strength. However, as long as you don't have a divine art, you will definitely lose today. Yan Wei wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He used the 9 steps of the sky demon and charged toward Dong Qing. His powerful aura shook the void for hundreds of miles. Dong Qing's eyes darkened. She turned to look at the inner demons and shouted, Qin Feiyang, I will fight with Yan Wei. If I win, you will let me go. If I lose, you can do whatever you want with me. How about it? Okay. The inner demons didn't even think about it and nodded. Firstly, he trusted Yan Wei. Secondly, he was worried about the safety of Dan Wangkai and Snake Viper. He didn't have time to care about Dong Qing. Of course. If Yan Wei couldn't even deal with Dong Qing, then there was no need to continue training him. Seeing the inner demons nod, Dong Qing smiled coldly and charged toward Yan Wei. Their cultivation was similar and their techniques were similar. Naturally, a fierce battle was unavoidable. First move of the tiger taming art, Sky Tiger Roar. First move of the frost arts, Ice Seal. Second move of the tiger taming art, Tiger out of the cage. Second move of the frost arts, Mystic Ice Seal. Third move of the tiger taming art. Third move of the frost arts. Boom! Crack! The two used their techniques in the air and clashed crazily. Soon, the battle reached its climax. Blood splattered and dyed the sky red. On the other side, the dust gradually settled and the storm calmed down. 2 bloody figures appeared in the inner demon's sight. It was Snake Viper and Dan Wangkai. Above their heads, Chang Shui and the ancient castle shone down rays of divine light, blocking the turbulent airwaves. He's not dead. The inner demon's face lit up. His nervous heart finally relaxed. But then, his face turned cold. He shouted, What are you doing over there? Snake Viper and Dan Wangkai's hearts were filled with the joy of surviving a disaster. Hearing the inner demons shout, the two looked at each other and dragged their tired bodies toward the inner demons. You're one of the 10 heroes of Qinghai. Is this all you've got? You can't even tell that they want to self-destruct? As soon as the two arrived, the inner demons scolded them. The two lowered their heads and remained silent. But their hearts were filled with warmth. In the past, they only saw coldness and heartlessness in the inner demons. But now they saw concern and worry. As if he saw through their thoughts, the inner demon snorted. Don't think that I saved you because I care about you. I just don't want to hurt my lord's heart. After all, he spent a lot of effort to train you. Snake Viper and Dan Wangkai nodded. But their faces were flushed red. He was obviously concerned about them, but he had to find excuses. Wasn't he tired? Looking at the two's expressions, the inner demons couldn't help but feel irritated. He reached out to grab Chang Shui and the castle and said, That's enough. Go and get that holy lion for me. The two of them shouted and swallowed a healing pill and battle chi pill. Then, they eagerly flew towards the dead holy lion. The holy lion was far away from the explosion site of the holy eagle and the holy python. Besides, it was a fake god's body, so it wasn't hurt. The inner demons glanced at the two's backs. He lowered his head and looked at the castle and Chang Shui. He murmured, It seems that my heart has really softened. It seemed that he was talking to himself, but also to the castle and Chang Shui. Chang Shui and the castle also withdrew their divine light. They looked calm. This is love. Even if you are the inner demons, you can't escape the shackles of love. Qin Feiyang's voice sounded in the inner world, with a faint smile. Joke. I'll be shackled by love? I'm just pitying you. Do you understand? Hearing Qin Feiyang's voice, the inner demons were very dissatisfied. Pitying me? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Yes. You don't have many friends. If Snake Viper and Dan Wangkai die, won't you be even lonelier? The inner demons answered with certainty. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, Is that really so? You should ask yourself. You can lie, but your heart is very honest. The inner demons frowned. After some time, he smiled coldly and said, Don't confuse me. I'm your evil side. Love doesn't exist for me. Then let's wait and see. After that, Qin Feiyong fell silent. Chapter 1184. The battle between Yan Wei and Dong Qing was quite intense. Although Yan Wei's strength had skyrocketed after following Qin Feiyong all these years, Dong Qing had also benefited a lot from following Mu Tianyang. The two's combat strength could be said to be evenly matched. But overall, Yan Wei had the upper hand. After all, Yan Wei was much older than Dong Qing. Whether it was combat experience or courage, he was far superior to Dong Qing. Master, here it is. Soon. Viper and Dan Wangkai ran over with the Holy Lion. The inner demons glanced at the Holy Lion and laughed. Put it in a Qiankuan bag. When the battle here is over, I'll treat you to lion meat. The Holy Lion was more than 10 meters tall. If it was put in the castle, it would take up a lot of space, so it could only be put in a Qiankuan bag. Heard. Viper and Dong Qing's eyes lit up. The Holy Lion had the body of a false god, which was equivalent to a divine beast. They had never tasted a divine beast's meat before. Dan Wangkai immediately found an empty Qiankuan bag and happily placed the Saint Lion into the Qiankuan bag. Viper said, Master, I have a question in my heart. What is it? The inner demons asked expressionlessly. Viper said, since the 4 sacred beasts were divine beasts in the past, why didn't I see them use the power of their divine souls? Hearing Viper's words, Dan Wangkai was slightly stunned and nodded. Yes, where are their divine souls? The inner demons said, they haven't condensed their divine souls yet. What do you mean? The two were puzzled. The inner demons said, only a true god of war can condense their divine souls. I see. The two were enlightened. Viper asked, then, is there no difference between a false god's soul and our soul? Of course there is a difference. After stepping into the false god realm, the soul will slowly transform. When it becomes a divine soul, it will be a god of war. The inner demons said. I see. In other words, the process of the soul transformation is the false god. Dan Wangkai said. Yes. Of course, I only have a rough understanding of it from ancient books. I don't know the details. The inner demons said. The two of them nodded. No matter how authentic the information recorded in the ancient books was, there would always be some discrepancies. In short, the existence of gods was not something they were qualified to touch at the moment. Ah! Just as the 3 of them were chatting, a scream suddenly rang out. The 3 of them hurriedly looked in the direction of the sound and saw Dong Qing crash into the ground below like a meteor. Rumble! A huge crater appeared in an instant. Yan Wei's imposing manner was like a rainbow as he rushed into the huge pit. He picked up Dong Qing like he was picking up a chick and walked to the front of the inner demons. There was a fist-sized hole in Dong Qing's lower abdomen, and blood was gushing out. His face was also deathly pale. Not bad, you didn't disappoint me. The inner demons glanced indifferently at Yan Wei, then looked at Dong Qing contemptuously and said, Do you think you have the right to be arrogant in front of me just because you're with Mu Tianyang? Dong Qing's face was ferocious, full of resentment and hatred. The inner demon said disdainfully, I destroyed your Dong family back then, and I can destroy you now. Tell me, how do you want to die? Dong Qing remained silent, but her body was trembling uncontrollably. The inner demon sneered and said, If you beg for mercy, maybe I'll consider letting you go. After all, Dong Zhengyang and I have a good relationship. Don't mention him in front of me. Dong Qing roared. Why? The inner demon smiled mockingly. Dong Qing shouted, He's a coward. A coward? Ha ha. You're wrong about that. He once wanted to kill me to avenge the Dong family, but unfortunately, he didn't have the ability. But he's more self-aware than you are. He knows what he should do and what he shouldn't do. The inner demon sneered. Dong Qing said, Even if what you said is true, it can't hide his cowardly and incompetent nature. You're still wrong. He's not cowardly and incompetent. He's trying to preserve the last trace of the Dong family's bloodline. Because he's the only man left in the Dong family. It can be said that the burden and responsibility he carries far surpasses yours. As for you, you look very courageous and admirable, but in fact, you're the most ignorant, stupid, and irresponsible. The inner demon sneered. Dong Qing flew into a rage out of humiliation and shouted, You're a demon who kills without blinking an eye. What right do you have to judge me? I don't know if others are qualified, but I know that I'm the most qualified. Because all of this was started by the Dong family. If the Dong family had been more down-to-earth and not so aggressive back then, would it have fallen to this point? So, you have no right to resent others, including me. The inner demon said blandly. Dong Qing was silent for a long time. Then she shook her head and said, "Cut the crap. I, Dong Qing, am a woman of my words. You can punish me however you want if I lose. You've got a backbone." The inner demons nodded with a smile and said, "But I have another question. Where's Zhang Jin?" He hadn't seen Zhang Jin since he arrived here. Zhang Jin should be with Ren Duxing, but why wasn't he here? Could it be that he was ordered by Ren Duxing to complete some other task? No comment. Dong Qing closed her eyes and said, "I'm not afraid of stubbornness." The inner demon smiled coldly and looked at Yen Wei. "Take him to the castle and let Fatso interrogate him." "Okay." Yen Wei nodded. The inner demons waved his hand and sent Yen Wei, Dong Qing, Viper, and Dan Wang Kai to the castle. Both of them were seriously injured and needed to recuperate. Moreover, their opponents now were Ran Duxing and the State Preceptor. They couldn't help much. As for Dong Qing, the inner demons wasn't worried at all. Because the prerequisite for self-destruction was cultivation. The inner demons looked up at the sky. His eyes flashed slightly, and he rushed to the hinterland. Ren Duxing didn't come here on a whim. So, there must be something hidden here. At the top of the sky, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The wind howled. Waves of terrifying energy surged down from the sky. Buzz! The inner demons waved his hand. Chang Shui floated above his head, emitting a hazy divine light to protect the inner demons. After a while, the inner demons saw the stone tablet. "Intruders of the hinterland of the Magic Dragon Mountains, die." He flew to the stone tablet and looked at the words on it. His pupils shrank slightly. What a strong killing intent. The cultivation of the person who wrote these words must have reached the pinnacle of perfection. When he looked up and saw the situation of the hinterland, a trace of surprise crept up in his eyes. Not a single blade of grass grew, and bones were everywhere. Wasn't this scene the same as the Devil's Island? Could it be that this place? His spirits were lifted, and he stepped into the hinterland. A familiar mysterious power suddenly surged toward him. As expected, the inner demon's eyes trembled. He scanned the hinterland, his face full of surprise. This mysterious force was almost exactly the same as the mysterious force on the Devil's Island and the Magic Dragon Glacier. In other words, there was also a demonic item that was related to the heart of the Magic Dragon and the eye of the Magic Dragon hidden here. Whoosh! He turned into a stream of light and rushed into the depths of the hinterland. Chang Shui's divine light flickered, blocking the mysterious force that was robbing vitality. Time passed breath by breath. Finally, the inner demons came to the front of the giant mountain. He looked up at the top of the mountain, his eyes bursting with light. "I want to see what it is that made Ran Duxing so envious." There was no suspense. Ran Duxing must have come to the hinterland for the thing on the top of the mountain. When he reached the top of the mountain and saw the black fog, the light in his eyes became brighter and brighter. This aura was exactly the same as the heart of the Magic Dragon, the eye of the Magic Dragon, and the reverse scale. He took 2 steps in 3 steps and walked to the front of the black fog. The mysterious force was stronger, but Chang Shui was as steady as Mount Tai and did not shake at all. The mysterious force also did not break through Chang Shui's defense. This was enough to show that whether it was Chang Shui or the castle, they were all stronger than the battle sword and magic crystal in Ren Duxing's hands. And suddenly, the inner demons lowered his head and looked at the ground in front of him. A trace of suspicion crawled on his face. There were actually many footprints on the ground. He looked at a few of the footprints and found that they were not human footprints, but the footprints of beasts. Haha! Suddenly, he laughed. He knew who the owner of these footprints was. The 4 sacred beasts. In other words, Ran Duxing had been here a long time ago. But the black fog was still here, which meant that Ran Duxing had no way to enter this black fog. Coming early may not be useful. The inner demons laughed sarcastically, raised his foot and stepped into the black fog. Immediately, a dragon claw entered his sight. The dragon claw was only the size of an adult's palm, and it was as black as ink, emitting a shocking demonic aura. First the heart of the magic dragon and the eye of the magic dragon, then the reverse scale, and now a dragon claw. Could it be, as the Mu clan ancestor said, that this was left behind by a magic dragon? The inner demon stared at the dragon claw and muttered to himself. But he could not figure it out. Why was the heart of the magic dragon, the eye of the magic dragon, and the reverse scale all in the Forgotten Continent, but this dragon claw was in the Great Qin Empire? Who was it that killed this magic dragon back then? And what was the point of leaving the heart of the magic dragon behind? Just as he was puzzled, the castle automatically flew out from between his eyebrows. The next moment, the dragon claw in front of him, like the heart of the magic dragon and the other demonic creatures, disappeared without a trace. Bastard! The inner demon was stunned and suddenly became angry. He grabbed the castle and roared, "Don't go too far!" But the castle's divine light dimmed, like a dead object. There was no reaction. The inner demons became angrier and angrier. Once or twice, he could endure it, but he did not expect it to happen again. Bang! He smashed the castle to the ground and stepped on it. Swish! But before he could step on it, the castle turned into a stream of light and disappeared from between his eyebrows. "Get the hell out!" The inner demons roared in exasperation. "This bastard is even more shameless than me." Hey, I did not provoke you. Why are you scolding me in your heart? Besides, where did you see me being shameless? Qin Feiyong's dissatisfied voice immediately sounded in his heart. "You are shameless everywhere." The inner demons coldly snorted. Qin Feiyong was speechless. He said, "Instead of competing with the castle, why don't we hurry up and see how the battle between the Imperial Advisor and Ren Duxing is going?" The inner demons angrily stomped his foot, then rushed up to the sky, and rushed towards the clouds. Boom! The giant mountain under his feet collapsed on the spot. It was obvious how terrifying the power of his foot was. Chapter 1185. At the top of the clouds. Above the firmament. Boom! Clang! The divine weapons and divine arts collided continuously. A terrifying storm tore through the starry sky. It was a scene of destruction. At this moment, if an ordinary person entered the firmament, they would probably be destroyed instantly. Without Chang Shue's protection, the inner demons would not dare to go up. Soon, the inner demons broke through the clouds and stood at the top of the clouds. What entered their sight was a vast starry sky. Somewhere in the starry sky, Ran Duxing and the Grand Tutor stood opposite each other. The divine weapons and divine arts collided violently. Waves of destructive aura swept out in all directions like raging waves hitting the shore. Both of them were dripping with blood, and their faces were full of weakness. The inner demons observed for a while and sneered. "Looks like they're both at the end of their rope." Even so, the battle between Ren Duxing and the Grand Tutor was not something he could interfere with. Qin Feiyong. Suddenly, the two of them also sensed the inner demon's aura. They stopped at the same time and turned to look at the inner demons. "Don't stop. Continue." The inner demons crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked like he was watching a show. Ren Duxing said in a deep voice, "You killed Dongqing and the 4 sacred beasts?" "That's right." The inner demons nodded. Ren Duxing's eyes were filled with coldness. He said angrily, "I shouldn't have let you live." The inner demon said disdainfully, "Don't talk big. Even if I'm standing here, you may not be able to kill me." Ren Duxing looked at Chang Shui, who was above the inner demons. His pupils shrank, and he did not hide his greed. The Grand Tutor's eyes were also full of greed. Jackals of the same tribe. The inner demon snorted and looked at Ren Duxing. "By the way, let me tell you something. The dragon claw is already in my hands." "What?" Ren Duxing's eyes froze. "Looks like you care a lot. However, don't expect me to hand over what's in my hands." The inner demon laughed. Her smile was very bright. Puh! Ren Duxing spat out a mouthful of blood. This was anger attacking the heart. It was a mixture of regret and hatred. If he had killed this kid in the land of ruins, how could this have happened? The inner demons exclaimed, "Aya, don't be so agitated. It's not good to hurt your body." "I'll kill you." Ren Duxing roared angrily and dragged his bloody body toward Qin Feiyong. "Your opponent is me." The state preceptor stepped in front of Ren Duxing, his eyes flashing coldly. The inner demons were astonished. This old thing would actually help him? What was going on? This old man is helping you out of consideration for the bigger picture. Mu Tianyang's existence is not only a threat to us, but also to the great Qin Empire. We can't let him leave alive. Quickly join forces with this old man and kill him. The state preceptor stared at Ran Duxing, murderous intent surging in his old eyes. The bigger picture. The inner demons was stunned, shook his head and said, I really didn't expect you to have this kind of awareness. This old man admits that there are some grudges between us, but in the face of the big picture, this old man will not be careless. Otherwise, this old man will not help you stall him. The state preceptor said in a deep voice. I see. The inner demons suddenly understood. He was originally wondering why Ren Duxing did not go down to save Dongqing and the 4 sacred beasts. It turned out that the state preceptor was helping him stall. Looks like this rotten old man isn't that unreasonable after all. The bigger picture? Haha. However, hearing the state preceptor's words, Ren Duxing could not stop laughing, as if he had heard the biggest joke in the world. The inner demons looked at him suspiciously. Ren Duxing said, Qin Feiyong, don't be fooled by his appearance. What do you mean? The inner demons frowned. Ren Duxing sneered, he is not as simple as you think. Do you still remember Zhuge Mingyang? Of course I remember. The inner demons nodded. At the same time, at the mention of Zhuge Mingyang, the state preceptor's pupils shrank slightly. Ren Duxing glanced at the state preceptor and said, Then do you know why Zhuge Mingyang assisted the first prince in the past, and why he cared so much about the first prince? The inner demon said, About this question, Zhuge Mingyang once told me that it was because of the situation. Do you believe it? Ren Duxing asked. The inner demons shook his head. He had never believed it. This question had been puzzling him for a long time, but he could not find the real answer. Now, Ren Duxing suddenly mentioned this matter. Could it be that Ren Duxing knew the real reason? Ren Duxing said with a smile, As you think, I know the whole truth. The inner demons narrowed his eyes and said, Tell me quickly. Ren Duxing pointed at the state preceptor and said, Help me kill him and I will tell you. The state preceptor panicked and hurriedly said, Qin Feiyong, he is trying to sow discord. Don't be fooled. Haha, the inner demons laughed and said, You said so much just to get my help. But with my little strength, I don't think I can help you much, right? You can. As long as you give pale snow to this old man has full confidence that he will be completely destroyed. Don't worry, after I kill him, this old man will return pale snow to you in one piece. The state preceptor said. Ren Duxing looked at the state preceptor and said mockingly, Do you think he will believe your nonsense? The state preceptor turned a deaf ear and said to Qin Feiyong, This is the only way to get rid of him. For the sake of your ancestor, the Qin Emperor, and the safety of billions of people, you should think about it carefully. The inner demons glanced at the two of them, his eyes flickering. Ren Duxing said, Qin Feiyong, I won't say such emotional words. I will only tell you one thing. Zhuge Mingyang's secret is enough to shake the great Qin Empire. What? The inner demons trembled. Was it that serious? Ren Duxing said, Don't doubt it. If you don't believe me, the great Qin Empire will fall into the hands of others before I can take it back. The inner demon's pupils shrank and he thought to himself, Looking at him, he doesn't seem to be an alarmist. He really couldn't tell whether it was true or not, so he asked Qin Feiyong for his opinion. Qin Feiyong was silent for a moment and said, Neither of them can be trusted. Let's wait and see. Okay. The inner demons secretly agreed. Bas. At this moment, the image crystal vibrated. The inner demons raised his eyebrows and entered the castle. It turned out that Fatso was sending him a message. What's wrong? He looked at Fatso suspiciously. Fatso said in a deep voice, Dongqing confessed. The inner demons looked down at Dongqing and saw her lying on the ground unconscious. Not only was her face unrecognizable, but there was also the smell of urine on her body. The inner demons looked at the white-eyed wolf and frowned. Did you do this? The white-eyed wolf said proudly, Brother, this is holy water. It's her honor to give it to you. Honor? The inner demon's mouth twitched violently. How could there be such a shameless guy in the world? It was no wonder that Dongqing confessed. No matter how strong a person's mind was, they would collapse in front of such a guy. What did she confess? The inner demons looked at Fatso and asked. Fatso said, Zhang Jin went to the capital. The inner demons raised his eyebrows and asked, why did he go to the capital? Ran Duxing asked him to go. Ran Duxing wanted to get the dragon claw in the hinterland, but he couldn't get close with just the combat sword and the magic crystal. So, Ran Duxing asked Zhang Jin to go to the capital to find Lu Xingchen and get the divine bone. Fatso said, the divine bone is with Lu Xingchen? The inner demons was surprised. Yes. Fatso nodded. I really didn't expect that such an important thing would be with him. However, Lu Xingchen is now in the hands of old Qin. Even if Zhang Jin sneaks into the capital, he won't have any chance. The inner demons sneered. Fatso said, but Zhang Jin must be eliminated. Yes. The inner demons nodded, grabbed Dong Qing, and left the castle. But the place where he appeared was no longer at the top of the clouds, because the exposed castle would automatically sink. He stood in the air and looked up at the sky. There were no fluctuations of battle in the sky, which meant that the State Preceptor and Ren Duxing were no longer fighting. Whoosh! He rushed into the sky again and stood at the top of the clouds, only to see the State Preceptor and Ren Duxing looking at each other vigilantly in silence. Do you want to kill her? The inner demons picked up Dong Qing and looked at Ran Duxing with a smile. Ran Duxing said lightly, she's just a chess piece. If you want to kill her, just kill her. It doesn't matter. Haha. It doesn't matter. You're indeed the emperor of the previous dynasty. The inner demon threw her head back and laughed. Then, she suddenly clenched her fingers and crushed Dong Qing's head in front of Ran Duxing. Ran Duxing's eyes were hazy. Dong Qing was indeed just a chess piece to him, but the inner demon's arrogant attitude made him very unhappy. You can continue. The inner demons glanced at the two of them indifferently, then turned and left. He realized that as long as he was here, the State Preceptor and Ren Duxing would not really fight, because neither of them wanted him to reap the benefits. Looking at the inner demon's back, both Ren Duxing and the State Preceptor looked gloomy. Suddenly, the two of them looked at each other and activated their battle sword and jade pendant at the same time. Divine power roared in all directions, and the starry sky collapsed. The inner demons was shocked and quickly turned to look. The State Preceptor smiled coldly and said, if you don't join forces with me, then I'll join forces with Mu Tianyang and send you to hell. That's right. You only have one choice. Either join forces with me, or join forces with the State Preceptor. Ren Duxing's eyes were also filled with murderous intent. The inner demons glanced at the two of them in a daze. He did not expect the situation to turn out like this. Make a decision now. The two of them shouted in unison. The inner demons frowned and shook his head. You're making it difficult for me. But I won't give Chang Xue to anyone. In other words, he would not help either of them. If the two of them wanted to join forces to kill him, he would not care. You're so stubborn. The State Preceptor was furious. The jade pendant suddenly shone with divine light, shaking the starry sky, and attacked the inner demons. Ran Duxing looked at the inner demons and said regretfully, I didn't want to kill you, but you forced me. Go to hell. He roared, and his battle sword shone with peerless sharpness. However, the red battle sword did not slash at Qin Feiyang. Instead, it took advantage of the moment when the State Preceptor attacked Qin Feiyang to turn around and slash at the State Preceptor. Damn it! The State Preceptor's expression changed, and he hurriedly recalled the jade pendant. He did not expect that Ran Duxing, who was so aggressive to kill Qin Feiyang, would suddenly change sides and attack him. However, it was too late to recall the jade pendant now. The battle sword whistled through the air. At the critical moment, the State Preceptor hurriedly dodged to the side. The battle sword fell, and blood gushed out. The State Preceptor's right arm was cut off on the spot. Ah! He endured the pain and quickly retreated far away, staring at Ran Duxing vigilantly. Whoosh! The jade pendant turned into a divine rainbow and returned to the top of his head, hanging down strands of divine light to protect him. What a pity! Ran Duxing shook his head. Chapter 1186. However, it was an undeniable fact that the State Preceptor's injuries had worsened. Clang! Boom! Ran Duxing suddenly turned around, and the battle sword and magic crystal were revived again. With a shocking sharpness and demonic power, he once again attacked the State Preceptor. He wanted to take advantage of the victory to pursue and attack. In the distance, the inner demons pursed his lips playfully. The current situation was really ever-changing. No one could ever imagine what would happen in the next second. Facing the two divine artifacts, the State Preceptor's heart was extremely heavy. He thought that Ren Duxing would really join forces with him to kill Qin Feiyong first. Who would have thought that it was just an act? If Qin Feiyong were to choose a team again, there was no doubt that he would definitely stand with Ren Duxing. Qin Feiyong, he didn't put him in his eyes. But once Qin Feiyong gave the Chong Shui to Ren Duxing, he would definitely die. Therefore, he had the thought of retreating in his heart. State Preceptor, this old man will help you. However, at this moment, a hoarse shout resounded. Following closely, a white-haired old man rushed to the top of the clouds and appeared in the sight of the three. It was Elder Qin. The situation is really ever-changing and unpredictable. The inner demons muttered, but they couldn't figure out how this old man knew they were here. At the same time, a trace of panic crawled up Ren Duxing's face. The State Preceptor's face was filled with ecstasy. Pointing at Ren Duxing, he shouted, "He is Mu Tianyong, quickly kill him." Mu Tianyong, your time of death has come. Elder Qin's eyes surged with a cold light, his divine power erupted, and he rushed towards Ren Duxing like an avalanche. Damn it! Ren Duxing's face was gloomy. For the State Preceptor now, he had full confidence that he could kill him, but he didn't expect that Elder Qin would suddenly attack. Facing two fake gods with his current state, even if he had two divine artifacts, it was impossible to win. Ren Duxing glanced at the two of them. Suddenly, with a wave of his hand, he recalled the two divine artifacts and rushed to the front of the inner demons. Then, he swept up the inner demons and rushed down without looking back. Don't run! The Imperial Preceptor and Old Qin roared and immediately chased after him. Humph! If I want to leave, none of you can stop me. Ren Duxing snorted and sent a wisp of divine sense into the magic crystal. Rumble! A terrifying gravitational force surged toward the two of them like a tidal wave. The Imperial Tutor and Old Qin felt as if they had sunk into a quagmire. Their speed suddenly decreased. This is... Old Man Qin held his breath. The Imperial Preceptor said in a deep voice, "That's right, it's the demonic crystal that belonged to the late Emperor. What a pity that the late Emperor's belongings have fallen into the hands of a devil." Old Man Qin cried out. While the two of them were talking, Ren Duxing opened a portal and sneered, "Go back and tell your Emperor that I will be back sooner or later." After saying that, Ren Duxing then turned around and darted into the portal with the inner demon and the magic crystal. That gravitational force also dissipated. The Imperial Preceptor and Old Man Qin immediately activated the power of the false god and blasted the portal, but they were still a step too late. The inner demons and Ren Duxing were teleported away. Damn it, damn it, damn it! The Imperial Preceptor cursed and flew into a rage. Mu Tianyong was the emperor of the previous dynasty, and was an existence that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the late emperor. Letting him escape was equivalent to letting a tiger return to the mountain. Old Man Qin sighed. "It's my fault. If I had come earlier, you wouldn't have been injured so badly, and Mu Tianyong wouldn't have escaped." The Imperial Preceptor glanced at him and said, "Don't say that. If you hadn't come in time, I would have definitely died in their hands." "Them?" Old Man Qin raised his eyebrows and said, "You mean, Qin Feiyong has already joined forces with Mu Tianyong?" "Yes. I have already told His Majesty to get rid of him as soon as possible, but His Majesty was merciful. It's great now, isn't it? He and Mu Tianyong are in cahoots. Mu Tianyong is already troublesome enough. Now with this little bastard, there will be endless trouble." The Imperial Preceptor said angrily. Old Man Qin frowned. The Imperial Preceptor's eyes flickered slightly as he asked suspiciously, "But speaking of which, how did you know we were here?" "Are you following me?" "I followed you? You think too much. I just felt uneasy seeing that you guys haven't returned for so long, so I came to Hezhou to take a look. By the way, where are the enforcers you brought?" Old Man Qin asked. "They?" The Imperial Preceptor closed his eyes in pain and sighed. "They probably all died in the hands of Qin Feiyong." This time, he wasn't pretending. Because those enforcers were his trusted subordinates. It would be strange if he didn't feel heartache when so many of them died. Old Man Qin patted his shoulder and comforted him. Don't be sad. Let's go back and tell His Majesty about this and let him decide. The Imperial Preceptor nodded. At the same time, spiritual state. Desert of death. It was as hot as ever. Strong winds blew, and yellow sand filled the sky. In the desert, the traces of beasts were hard to find, and only one or two figures could be seen occasionally. Swish! Suddenly, two figures appeared out of thin air above a sand dune. It was the inner demons and Ren Duxing. Ren Duxing put away the magic crystal, glanced at the desert below, and asked, "Do you still know where this place is?" "Of course," the inner demon said lightly. Ren Duxing said, "We should have officially met here, right?" "Yes." The inner demons nodded. Ren Duxing said, "How have I treated you?" The inner demons was stunned and said, "Not bad." "Then why did you betray me?" Ren Duxing suddenly raised his head, stared at the inner demons angrily, and slapped at the inner demons. This change was very sudden. But the inner demons wasn't surprised at all. He raised his hand and punched. Boom! Ren Duxing was sent flying on the spot, blood gushing out of his mouth. "You dare to attack me without using your divine sense or artifact. Do you want to die?" The inner demons smiled in disdain. Ren Duxing stabilized his body and stared at the inner demons with a gloomy expression, letting the blood splatter. The inner demons smiled mockingly and said lightly, "After fighting with the Grand Master for so long, you shouldn't have much divine sense left. Killing you is still not a problem." Ren Duxing said word by word, his eyes full of murderous intent. "Then you can try." The inner demons crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked at him provocatively. Ren Duxing clenched his fists, his eyes flashing with a shocking cold light. After a long time, he took a deep breath and sneered, "If I didn't give you the pill scripture back then, would you have today's achievements? Is this how you repay your benefactor? Give it to me?" The inner demon smiled and said, "Don't get it wrong, I got the pill scripture with my own ability." What a joke. If I wanted to get the pill scripture back then, it would be easy. Ren Duxing shouted. "You're the one who's joking. After I got the pill scripture back then, I kept it in the castle. Without my permission. Can you enter the castle?" "I don't think so." "So don't say such high-sounding words. It will only make you more ridiculous and funny." The inner demon said lightly. Ren Duxing was about to explode. He held back his anger and nodded. "Okay, let's not talk about the pill scripture for now. Let's talk about how I let you go in the ruins out of kindness. Why are you betraying me now?" "Betraying you?" The inner demons was stunned. Ren Duxing said angrily, "You dare say that you didn't call the Grand Master and Elder Qin?" "That's right, I called the Grand Master here. My purpose is very simple. I want you to fight until both sides are injured, and then I'll take advantage of the situation. Unfortunately, I'm still too young and underestimated you. Old monsters like you who have lived for tens of thousands of years cherish your lives more than anyone else. How can you really fight to the death? But even if I don't get rid of you, I've already profited this time. Not only did I kill Dong Qing and the 4 sacred beasts, but I also killed 50 or 60 inner hall enforcers. You don't care about Dong Qing's death, but the 4 sacred beasts' death must be very painful for you." The inner demon said with a playful smile. Ren Duxing clenched his hands tightly. The 4 sacred beasts were loyal to him. In the early years, they accompanied him on expeditions. They were not only his most trusted subordinates, but also his partners. Thinking back when he fought with Qin Batian, the 4 sacred beasts didn't die, but now they were killed by Qin Feiyong. How could he not hate him? The inner demons looked at him coldly and said, "As for Elder Qin, I'm also wondering why he came." The inner demons pondered. Could it be? Suddenly, his eyes trembled slightly. With a thought, the killing intent floating in his chi-si emerged. This was the killing intent that Elder Qin gave him. Ren Duxing was surprised by the killing intent. The inner demons looked at Ren Duxing and said in a deep voice, "Help me see if this killing intent is still connected to Elder Qin." At that time, Elder Qin told him that he had already cut off the connection with this killing intent. But now, he couldn't help but wonder if Elder Qin had lied to him. Ren Duxing released a wisp of divine sense and rushed toward the killing intent. However, before he could get close, The killing intent burst out with a terrifying killing intent and blasted toward Ren Duxing's divine sense. The inner demon's expression changed and he went straight to the castle. Just as he stepped into the castle, a deafening rumbling sound rang out from under his feet. The killing intent and divine sense collided with each other, and a world-destroying wave of air suddenly emerged and rolled in all directions. For a moment. In this world, the void collapsed, the desert sank, and yellow sand flew all over the sky. Finally, the killing intent was shattered. But Ren Duxing's divine sense also disappeared by more than half. Just you wait, I will never let you go. Ren Duxing couldn't help but roar. Whether it was his face or his eyes, they were full of weakness. When the wind calmed down, the inner demons appeared in the desert. Looking at Ren Duxing in the sky, his eyes flashed and he laughed. It seems that your divine sense is really not much left. Ren Duxing's face darkened. The inner demons flew up and laughed. Tell me, how much is left? 10. 5. Or is there only one last wisp of divine sense left? Ren Duxing said sternly, if you dare to talk nonsense again, don't blame me for being ruthless. If you really wanted to kill me, you would have done it long ago. Why wait until now? I think you still need me to help you with something. The inner demons teased. If he had no value, Ren Duxing would have definitely joined forces with the Imperial Advisor to kill him in the Magic Dragon Mountain range. Haha, Ren Duxing laughed and mocked. You are so smart, you can think of anything, but in the end, you were still tricked by Elder Qin. Chapter 1187. If Elder Qin really cut off the connection with the killing intent, it wouldn't wake up on its own. Because after cutting off the connection, the killing intent would only listen to Qin Feiyong's orders. In other words, the killing intent would only attack when Qin Feiyong asked it to. But just now, the killing intent woke up on its own without the inner demon saying anything. This meant that Elder Qin didn't cut off the connection with the killing intent at all. In other words, Elder Qin tracked his location based on the killing intent. The inner demons clenched his hands and sneered. These old foxes, none of them are trustworthy. They thought that Elder Qin was a good person. But they didn't expect that he was also harboring evil intentions. You must be very angry. Ren Duxing laughed gloatingly. The inner demon sneered and said, don't gloat. Do you know Lu Xingchen's current situation? What do you mean? Ren Duxing's face darkened. Dong Qing has explained everything in detail. You asked Zhang Jin to go to the capital to find Lu Xingchen to get the divine bone, but Lu Xingchen is now in Elder Qin's hands. The inner demon said. Ren Duxing stepped forward, grabbed the inner demon's clothes and shouted, speak clearly, what's going on? Let go. The inner demons raised his eyebrows. Speak. Ren Duxing roared. I told you to let go. The inner demons lowered his voice and said word by word. Ren Duxing stared at the inner demons aggressively, but in the end, he compromised and let go of the inner demon's clothes. Before going to He province to find you, I went to see Lu Xingchen and saw through his identity, so I handed him over to Elder Qin. He should be in the prison of God now. So even if Zhang Jin went to the capital, he wouldn't have a chance to see him. The inner demons laughed. Bastard! Ren Duxing suddenly went crazy with anger. But suddenly, he smiled, a very bright smile. The inner demons frowned. Ren Duxing looked at the inner demons and said, do you remember that I told you that I know Zhuge Mingyang's secret? The pupils of the inner demons shrank slightly. Ren Duxing said, this matter was investigated by Lu Xingchen. If you want to know the truth, go find him. The inner demons narrowed their eyes. It was obvious that Ren Duxing wanted to use this point to make him go to the imperial capital to rescue Lu Xingchen. You want to rescue Lu Xingchen without expending a single soldier? Your wishful thinking is really good. But I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. I don't really want to know the truth. The inner demons sneered. Really? Then what if I say that Zhuge Mingyang and the eldest prince are biological brothers? Ren Duxing joked. Biological brothers. The inner demons trembled. That's all I can tell you. You can ask Lu Xingchen yourself. Ren Duxing chuckled. After that, he opened a portal, turned around, and left without looking back. Biological brothers. The inner demons muttered to themselves. How was this possible? Whoosh. Qin Feiyong manifested next to the inner demons. His face was also full of disbelief. The inner demons deactivated the kill formula, turned to Qin Feiyong, and said, "I won't interfere in this matter. You do as you see fit." After that, the inner demons retreated to the inner world. Qin Feiyong also took control of his physical body. He lowered his head in silence. The eldest prince and Zhuge Mingyang were biological brothers. If what Ren Duxing said was true, then this matter would be a big deal. A moment later, he raised his head and glanced at the desert of death, then took out a portal and was ready to leave. "Are you Zhang Haotian?" Suddenly, a timid voice sounded. Ha! Qin Feiyong was stunned. He had not used the name Zhang Haotian for many years. And now, the world knew that he was Qin Feiyong. Why would someone still call him by this name? He glanced around and finally found that the voice came from the desert below. Qin Feiyong asked, "I am Zhang Haotian. May I ask who you are?" "It's really you." Accompanied by a joyful voice, the yellow sand below surged. Suddenly, a huge python rushed out of the yellow sand. Its body was dozens of meters long, and its whole body was yellow. Its lantern-like pupils were full of excitement. Qin Feiyong was stunned. He never thought that it would be a python. "Do you still remember me?" The python flew in front of Qin Feiyong and said excitedly. "You are?" Qin Feiyong was suspicious. "Back then, when you and the ruffian wolf wanted to go to the Sea of Despair, I was the one who took you through the desert of death. Before we parted, you promised that you would come to me in the future and give me the breakthrough pill and transformation pill." The python transmitted its voice, beaming with joy. "So it's you." Qin Feiyong suddenly realized. He finally remembered. That's right. Back then, it was this python in front of him that took him and the white-eyed wolf to the Sea of Despair. Moreover, this python also helped them open the door of potential. Of course, the python didn't know about this. Meeting after a long time, Qin Feiyong was also very happy. He even forgot about his troubles and asked, "How have you been these years? I have been waiting for you all these years, but you didn't come to me." The python was a little disappointed. "I'm sorry. I was too busy and forgot what I promised you," Qin Feiyong said apologetically. The python laughed. "It's fine as long as you're here." Qin Feiyong was a little ashamed and asked with a smile, "Why are you here?" "I was meditating in the distance. I suddenly heard the sound of a battle here, so I came over to take a look. I didn't expect it to be you," the python said. "I'm really sorry. Do you still need the transformation pill and the breakthrough pill now?" Qin Feiyong asked. "No need. A few years ago by chance, I came across a dead body. In his Chenkuan bag, I found a lot of pills, including the barrier-breaking pill and the transformation pill," the python said. Qin Feiyong laughed. "This is called good people have good karma." "How am I a good person? I was just lucky." The python was a little shy. Qin Feiyong sized it up. After all these years, the python's strength had also broken through. 6-star War Emperor. In this desert, it was already strong enough to dominate. Suddenly, he made the next decision in his heart and smiled. "Are you willing to leave with me?" "Leave?" The python was a little stunned, obviously not expecting Qin Feiyong to ask such a question. "Of course I won't force you. If you don't want to, I will leave behind some pills, enough for you to break through to the War Master," Qin Feiyong said. "I'm willing." The python nodded. Qin Feiyong was slightly startled. This caught him off guard. He originally thought that the python would consider it carefully, but he didn't expect it to agree so straightforwardly. "There are some things that I have to tell you in advance. Although you can obtain great strength by following me, you will also face many powerful enemies at the same time. For example, the current imperial advisor and emperor of the Great Qin Empire," Qin Feiyong said. "Are they very powerful?" The python looked at him in confusion. Qin Feiyong was startled, and then laughed bitterly. The python had always lived in the Death Desert, so how could it know how powerful the current emperor and the imperial advisor were? "They are very strong. Because they are the dominators of this continent," Qin Feiyong patiently explained. He was very grateful to this giant python. Back then, if he were to rely on himself, it would take at least a few years to cross this desert. There was even a great possibility that he would be buried in the Death Desert. After all, at that time, He was only a martial ancestor. He was like this. As long as he was indebted to someone, whether it was a human or a beast, he would repay it double. Hearing Qin Feiyong's explanation, the python sighed. I didn't expect that there would be such a terrifying existence in this world. What about you? What's your cultivation now? It asked again. Qin Feiyong said, 6-star battle saint. A battle saint is simply a godlike existence. The python sighed, but its eyes were even more determined. I'm not afraid, because I also want to be like you and break through with a bang. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, let's go, I'll take you to a place. After saying that, he opened the portal in his hand. The python's enormous body rapidly shrunk. After that, it followed behind Qin Feiyong and entered the teleportation gate. Iron Ox Town. There was nothing left of this small village. Although many days had passed, there was still a tragic aura left in the void. Outside the town, deep in the mountains, a clear lake rippled. A simple courtyard was located beside the lake. Whoosh! Qin Feiyong and the python appeared in front of the courtyard one after another. The python asked suspiciously, where is this place? My home. Qin Feiyong looked at the courtyard and smiled. Home. The python was stunned and looked around curiously. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and Fatso and the rest, Wolf King and other beasts all appeared in an instant. In short, in the ancient castle, except for Mu Qing, everyone came out. Seeing so many people and beasts appear at once, and each of them had an extremely powerful aura, the python was so scared that it hurriedly hid behind Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong pulled it out and smiled. Don't be afraid, they are all my family. After saying that, Qin Feiyong looked at Fatso and the others and said, everyone, welcome our new partners. Little Worm, long time no see. How are you? Did you miss your brother? The white-eyed wolf was the first to go up and laughed. You are. The python looked at the white-eyed wolf and suddenly its eyes trembled and said in surprise, that ruffian wolf. A row of black lines appeared on the white-eyed wolf's forehead. No matter who it met, they all called it ruffian wolf. Was it really that bad? Little guy, welcome to the pirate ship. The two-winged snow eagle was also very enthusiastic, but this sentence made Qin Feiyong a little angry. What pirate ship? Do you know how to speak? The pangolin also stared at the two-winged snow eagle and ran to the front of the python with a smile. Don't be nervous, we are all good people. But that smile was very wretched. Good people. The python looked strange. These guys in front of it didn't look like good people at all. The black dragon snake shouted, okay, they just joined and don't know us. What if they are scared away? Join. The python's heart skipped a beat. This seemed to be a special word for bandits and robbers, right? Could this really be a pirate ship? Looking at the python's worried look, Qin Feiyong was quite helpless. He stared at Wolf King and the other beasts and said, stop fooling around, hurry up and prepare, we are going to barbecue. Barbecue. Chapter 1188. The giant python glanced at everyone's expressions and asked in a low voice, what barbecue? Why is everyone so excited? Divine meat. Qin Feiyong laughed. What? The giant python's eyes widened. Divine meat? What kind of joke was this? Was this something that ordinary people could eat? Qin Feiyong smiled faintly, took out Chong Shui, threw it to Dan Wang Kai, and said, go and prepare. All right. Dan Wang Kai grabbed Chong Shui and excitedly ran to the lake. He took out the universe bag and took out the holy lion's corpse. Wolf King and the winged snow eagle also immediately followed to help. Not long later, the holy lion was chopped into 8 pieces. There was still a shocking divine might left in the flesh and blood. Fatso and Viper ran far away and found a large pile of firewood. They also moved a few large stones and built a few stoves. Viper took out a few large pots and placed them on top. There were stewing pots, frying pans, steaming pans. After igniting the firewood, the water in the pot quickly boiled. The giant python was stunned. To it, divine beasts were legendary existences that could only be looked at but not touched. But now, it saw with its own eyes that a divine beast was chopped into pieces, thrown into a pot, fried, steamed, and stir-fried. What an inconceivable scene! At the same time, seeing that everyone was busy, Qin Feiyong's face revealed a smile that he hadn't seen for a long time. This smile was very sincere. Then, He silently left the lake and aimlessly wandered around the nearby mountains. The mountains, trees, and rivers here seemed to be hiding an invisible magic power. Every time he returned here, his anxious heart would slowly calm down. Walking to the mountains, breathing in the fresh air and recalling the past, his heart was especially peaceful. This won't do. By the lake. Fatso stood in front of the stove, looking at the divine meat in the few large pots, looking rather annoyed. These divine meat had been in the pot for a while, but there were no signs of cooking. Suddenly, Fatso's eyes lit up as he said, "Boss, let me borrow your nether devil flame." But when he turned to look at Qin Feiyong, he found that Qin Feiyong had already disappeared. Where's boss? Where did he go? He glanced around and asked Lu Hong and the others. Everyone looked at each other. They didn't even know when Qin Feiyong left. This person is too much. He didn't even say goodbye before leaving. Fatso grumbled in dissatisfaction. He looked at Dan Wangkai and chuckled. Then use your alchemy fire. Dan Wangkai said, mine is only a 7th grade alchemy fire. Fatso urged, there's not much difference between rank 7 and rank 8. Hurry up. All right. Dan Wangkai nodded. With a thought, a palm-sized alchemy fire appeared. It was the 7th grade alchemy fire that he obtained from the divine Python tribe's leader. A 7th grade alchemy fire was equivalent to a battle sage. Although it was still far from a false god, it was still better than ordinary dry firewood. I'll go find Qin Feiyong. Lu Hong glanced at the crowd and said with a smile. Then she turned and walked towards the mountains outside. I'll go take a look too. Yan Wei smiled and turned to follow her. Fatso was stunned. He turned to look at their backs and exclaimed, I don't even know where he went. Where are you going to find him? Yan Wei smiled without looking back. This place is only so big. How difficult can it be to find him? Up to you. Fatso waved his hand and turned back to stare at the few big pots. His eyes were glowing. Back to Qin Feiyong. Unknowingly, he walked into the small forest and stood on a bluestone. He looked around and didn't speak for a long time. I finally found you. Soon. Lu Hong and Yan Wei entered the small forest one after the other and looked at Qin Feiyong with a smile. Why are you here? Qin Feiyong came back to his senses and turned to look at the two with a smile. Because we're worried about you. Lu Hong said. Qin Feiyong shook his head and said with a smile. The fierce beasts here are generally only at the level of a warrior or a martial master. What's there to worry about? It's better to be safe than sorry. Yan Wei smiled and walked to Qin Feiyong. He asked suspiciously, why are you standing here? Qin Feiyong glanced around with a trace of reminiscence in his eyes. He said, this is where I parted with Uncle Yuan. Yan Wei nodded in realization. It turned out that this kid was thinking of someone else. Qin Feiyong sighed. I remember that when I was invited to the Lin family, Uncle Yuan sent me off here. But I didn't expect that this farewell would be forever. Lu Hong comforted her. That won't happen. You two will definitely meet again. Qin Feiyong nodded. In this world, he didn't have many relatives. So whether it was his mother or Uncle Yuan, he cherished them very much. Lu Hong sighed. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something and asked, oh right, do you plan to save Lu Xingchen? Qin Feiyong was silent for a moment and said, let me think about it. He personally sent Lu Xingchen to old Qin. Now, he had to rescue him. He couldn't accept it. Lu Hong and Yan Wei looked at each other and fell silent. Qin Feiyong had his own opinions. They couldn't give any opinions. They could only silently guard him. Time passed little by little. After some time, Yan Wei suddenly raised his head and looked at the Iron Ox town not far away. They were not far from the Iron Ox town. They could see it if they raised their heads. Yan Wei seemed to have discovered something. There was a trace of suspicion in his eyes. But he didn't say anything and quickly withdrew his gaze. But soon, he raised his head again and looked at the Iron Ox town. The suspicion in his eyes was even stronger. Suddenly, he looked at Qin Feiyong and asked, is there anyone else in the Iron Ox town? Qin Feiyong was stunned. He shook his head and said, no, why do you ask? No. Yan Wei frowned and muttered, then why did I sense a Taoist's aura in the Iron Ox town? A human's aura. Qin Feiyong was surprised. He raised his head and looked at the Iron Ox town. Sure enough, he was also in the Iron Ox town. He sensed a weak aura that was difficult to distinguish, but he was sure that it was a person. Whoosh! Immediately, he turned into a stream of light and rushed towards the Iron Ox town. Yan Wei and Lu Hong quickly followed. With Qin Feiyang's current speed, he only needed a few steps to enter the Iron Ox town. But when he entered the Iron Ox town, he found that there was no one here. But in a certain place, he saw something familiar. He took a step forward and landed in the center of the Iron Ox town. He lowered his head and looked at the ground. The Iron Ox town had long ceased to exist. It had now become a huge tomb. And on the ground, there were 3 Buddhist incense sticks. In front of the Buddhist incense, there were 3 plates of fresh fruits and a wine pot. And there was a pile of burning paper money. Next to it, there were a few footprints. Obviously, someone had been worshipping here before. Qin Feiyang shouted, "Go and find it. I want to know who was worshipping here just now." Yan Wei and Lu Hong nodded and immediately split up to search. Qin Feiyang looked at the Buddhist incense, fruits, and wine pot on the ground. His eyes flickered. Not long after, Yan Wei and Lu Hong came back. Yan Wei shook his head and said, "The aura has disappeared." "I didn't find it either," Lu Hong said. "Strange. Everyone in the Iron Ox town has been killed. Who would come here to worship?" Qin Feiyang frowned. Lu Hong said, "Could it be a villager in the Iron Ox town?" On the same day, the battle between Zhang Jin and the invincible Black Army had indeed destroyed the entire Iron Ox town. But it could not be ruled out that someone just happened to be outside and luckily escaped. "It can't be a villager in the Iron Ox town." Yan Wei shook his head. "How do you know?" Lu Hong was stunned and asked. "It's very simple. If it's just an ordinary villager, it's impossible to slip away under our eyes," Yan Wei said. "That's true." Lu Hong nodded. After sensing the aura, they immediately came to the Iron Ox town. In other words, the mysterious person who came to worship left during the time when they came to the Iron Ox town. It took them no more than 3 breaths to come to the Iron Ox town. How could an ordinary villager escape their tracking in 3 breaths of time? There was only one explanation. This person was a cultivator, and he was very strong. Lu Hong looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "In addition to you, are there any other powerful cultivators in the Iron Ox town outside?" "Yes. Lin Yi, Luo Chenxue," Qin Feiyang said. Lu Hong said in surprise, "Could it be them?" "No. Because if it were them, they wouldn't leave without saying goodbye." Qin Feiyang shook his head. Yan Wei looked down at the footprints on the ground and said, "The key is that these footprints look like women's." The footprints of men were relatively wide, but the footprints on the ground were somewhat slender. Who could it be? Qin Feiyang stared at the footprints and muttered to himself. Suddenly, he seemed to think of something and took out the image crystal. Bas! Wolf King's phantom emerged. Qin Feiyang said, "Come to the Iron Ox town immediately." Now, he could only rely on Wolf King's sense of smell to determine the identity of this person. Not long after, Wolf King came and asked, "Why are you in such a hurry? What happened?" "See for yourself," Qin Feiyang said. Wolf King glanced around suspiciously and soon noticed the Buddhist incense on the ground. He said in surprise, "Who burned this incense?" "I don't know. This person just left not long ago. Smell it with your nose and see if you can distinguish his identity," Qin Feiyang said. "Okay." Wolf King nodded. He closed his eyes and sniffed with force. Strange. After a long time he opened his eyes. His eyes were full of confusion. "What's wrong?" Lu Hong asked. Wolf King said, "This smell is very special. It's the body fragrance of 2 women." "2 women?" Lu Hong looked startled and asked, "Is it Lin Yi and Luo Chenxue?" "It's not them. Because I am very familiar with their body fragrance. I can smell it at once. And these 2 body fragrances, I also have a sense of déjà vu, but it feels very strange," Wolf King said. "Familiar? Strange. Isn't this contradictory?" Lu Hong frowned. Wolf King said, "Yes, it's so contradictory. That's why I said it's very special." Qin Feiyang said, That is to say, we have seen these two women before? We must have seen them before. Otherwise, I wouldn't feel familiar. Chapter 1189. I've seen them before. They're still very strong. And they're two women. Qin Feiyong racked his brains, but he just couldn't remember such two people. Because in his memory, there was no such woman. Qin Feiyong said, I want to wait here, you guys go back first. The two men and one wolf nodded and flew away. Qin Feiyong lowered his head and looked at the Buddhist incense, wine jug, and fruits on the ground. He sighed deeply, turned around, and flew out of Iron Ox Town, finding a mountain peak. Standing at the top of the mountain, one could see the entire Iron Ox Town. Immediately, he restrained his aura and watched Iron Ox Town from afar. Days passed. Although Qin Feiyong had also thought that the mysterious person who came to pay his respects shouldn't appear again, he still held onto a trace of hope. But on the 10th day, he left in disappointment. By the lake. Seeing Qin Feiyong return, Fatso chuckled, You're back just in time, come and try it. Qin Feiyong landed beside Fatso and the others, looking at the few big pots. After 10 days of unremitting efforts, the divine meat was finally cooked. From afar, one could smell the rich fragrance of the meat, making one's mouth salivate. Qin Feiyong tasted a piece, and his face immediately bloomed. He nodded and said, Not bad. Everyone, quickly have a taste. Everyone immediately swarmed over. Ah! Not long after, a wail sounded. The giant python was lying on the ground, constantly struggling. Its body had turned red and was still smoking. What's going on? Everyone looked at it in surprise. So hot. I feel like my body is about to explode. The giant python cried out in horror. It shouldn't be. We're all eating the same, why are we fine? Everyone was bewildered. The giant python's appearance became more and more painful. Its body swelled up like a balloon. Qin Feiyong looked at the giant python, and his eyes suddenly flashed. He took out the ice blade and threw it into the lake next to him. The terrifying cold air immediately turned the lake into a frozen lake. The cold current was bone-chilling. Qin Feiyong shouted, Quickly enter the lake. When the giant python heard this, it hurriedly jumped into the lake, splashing up huge waves. The white-eyed wolf looked at the lake, then turned to Qin Feiyong and asked suspiciously, Little Qin Zi, what's wrong with it? Are you allergic to the divine meat? Allergies? Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes. This white-eyed wolf really had a rich imagination. Wolf King asked suspiciously, If it's not an allergy, then what is it? It's because its cultivation is too weak, and its body can't withstand the energy in the divine flesh. If we don't suppress it, it will definitely explode and die. Qin Feiyong said. I see. Everyone suddenly understood. Qin Feiyong said, But for it, this is a great fortune. What good fortune? Wolf King asked. Just wait and see. Qin Feiyong smiled mysteriously. Everyone stared at the lake, their eyes full of confusion. About 100 breaths later, boom! Suddenly, a powerful aura erupted at the bottom of the lake. It was the giant python's aura. But in the next moment, its aura soared crazily. In less than 3 breaths, its aura had soared to that of a 7-star combat emperor. Wolf King asked in surprise, Is this the good fortune you mentioned? Yes. The flesh of a divine beast can not only strengthen one's physique, but also increase one's cultivation realm. Qin Feiyong nodded. Hurry up and eat. Don't fight, it's all mine. Hearing this, everyone immediately pounced on the big pots like hungry wolves pouncing on their food. Strengthen their physique and increase their cultivation realm. How could they let others have such a good thing? Everyone went crazy. Especially Wolf King and the other beasts, who wolfed down the divine meat. Soon, only half of the divine meat was left. Soon, everyone couldn't stand it and jumped into the lake. During this period, the giant python rushed out of the lake. After tasting the sweetness, it also started to fight with everyone. Boom! For a moment, powerful auras kept erupting from the lake. Even Yan Wei broke through to a 3-star combat emperor because he ate the divine meat. Qin Feiyong wouldn't miss such a good opportunity and successfully stepped into the 7-star combat saint realm. However, after breaking through a small realm, the benefits that the divine meat brought to everyone obviously began to weaken. The sky gradually darkened. Several big pots of divine meat were all wiped out. Not even a little bit of heat was left. Everyone sat cross-legged by the lake, refining the energy in the divine meat. Only the giant python was still in the lake. Its cultivation was too weak. For it, if it didn't rely on external help, it wouldn't be able to digest such a great supplement. And its cultivation had already stepped into the 9-star combat emperor realm. Qin Feiyong had also helped it open the door of potential, and was currently trying to break through to the War Master realm. Time passed quietly. Early morning. The morning sun rose slowly, and the warm sunlight dispelled the remaining cold air of the night. Yan Wei was the first to wake up. When he opened his eyes, 2 rays of light burst out from his eyes. Comfortable. He stood up, exuding a tyrannical aura. In just one night, his body had become much more robust. His entire person looked as if he had been reborn. Phew! He let out a long breath of turbid air, turned around, and glanced at Qin Feiyong and the others. He then stood to the side, silently protecting everyone. Noon! Boom! Qin Feiyong, who was meditating with his eyes closed, suddenly trembled, and a mighty holy aura emerged. Is he going to break through again? Yan Wei's gaze trembled as he looked at Qin Feiyong in surprise. Qin Feiyong's holy aura continued to soar, as if he was about to break through to the 8-star combat saint realm. But in the end, his holy aura stopped at the peak of the 7-star combat saint realm. He was just one step away from becoming an 8-star combat saint. What a pity! Qin Feiyong opened his eyes and retracted his holy aura. A trace of disappointment appeared on his face. You should be content. Yan Wei smiled. Qin Feiyong looked up at him and smiled. Yes, he should be content. Although he was not as exaggerated as the giant python, who could break through several realms in a day, to be able to break through from the 6-star combat saint realm to the peak of the 7-star combat saint realm was a very big gain. In fact, he had gained more than the giant python. This was because the time and energy required for a combat saint to break through a small realm was much more than that of a combat emperor. Moreover, his cultivation was now at the peak of the 7-star combat saint realm. It would not be long before he broke through again and stepped into the 8-star combat saint realm. It could be said that, in just one night, his strength skyrocketed several times. He was also getting closer and closer to the combat emperor realm. As long as he broke through to the combat emperor realm and activated the kill formula, he would be invincible against anyone below the false god realm. He might even be able to fight against a false god. Qin Feiyong took a deep breath and calmed down the excitement in his heart. He looked at Yan Wei and asked with a smile, "What about you? How was your gain?" "Very good. Not only did I break through to the 3-star combat emperor realm, but my physical body is also much stronger than before. I feel that I can kill someone of the same realm in an instant with just the strength of my physical body," Yan Wei said with undisguised joy. "That's right. Our biggest gain this time is not our cultivation, but our physical body. The Saint Lion has the body of a false god, and its flesh contains the power of a false god. We ate its divine flesh, which is equivalent to our physical body being tempered by the power of a false god. Whether it is toughness or strength, they have all been greatly improved. I also feel that I can kill someone of the same realm in an instant with a punch." Qin Feiyong clenched his fists tightly. He could clearly feel the explosive power in his body. Yan Wei smiled and said, "Although the Saint Lion is not a true war god, it is still a divine beast. The benefits it brings are naturally unimaginable." Qin Feiyong nodded. But then again, if a false god-level divine beast could bring such great benefits to everyone, how shocking would it be if it was a true war god-level divine beast? Unfortunately, a true war god-level divine beast could no longer be found in this world. Otherwise he would really want to try. Time flew by. Viper and Dan Wangkai also woke up one after another. Viper finally broke through to the 1-star combat emperor realm. Dan Wangkai also broke through to the 2-star combat emperor realm. After that, Fatso and the white-eyed wolf also woke up one after another. Their cultivation was much weaker than Qin Feiyong, and they broke through 2 small realms consecutively. For example, the white-eyed wolf and the 2-winged snow eagle were both 6-star battle saints now. At the same time, it also showed that the white-eyed wolf's talent and potential were indeed much stronger than the 2-winged snow eagle. Because when the 2-winged snow eagle stepped into the battle saint realm, The white-eyed wolf was only a war master. In short, everyone's strength had undergone earth-shattering changes. In the end, everyone had already woken up. Only the giant python was still in the lake and had not appeared. And the lake did not have any movements. A thick layer of ice had already formed on the surface of the lake. White mist rose and cold air filled the air. Everyone stood by the lake and stared at the surface of the lake. They could not help but worry. The white-eyed wolf said, "Do you think this guy is dead?" "Shut your crow's beak." Qin Feiyong glared at it. Although there was no movement in the lake, the giant python's aura did not disappear. This meant that it was still refining the energy of the divine flesh. A moment later, Qin Feiyong retracted his gaze and looked at everyone. "It should be a long time before it comes out. Take advantage of this time to stabilize your cultivation." Everyone nodded. Except for Lu Hong and Yen Wei, everyone else sat cross-legged on the ground and closed their eyes to cultivate. Lu Hong walked to Qin Feiyong's side and whispered, "Should we think of a way to deal with Zhang Jin?" Yen Wei said suspiciously, "We don't even know where he is now. How can we deal with him?" Qin Feiyong said, "He is in the imperial capital. With old man Qin guarding the pagoda, how can he sneak into the imperial capital?" Yen Wei was surprised. Qin Feiyong said, "Old man Qin is indeed guarding the pagoda, but don't forget, old man Qin left before. But we can't be sure that he is in the imperial capital now. After all, he went to find Lu Xingchen. When he learned that Lu Xingchen had fallen into old man Qin's hands, he would definitely leave the imperial capital immediately." Yen Wei said, "No." At first, no one knew that Lu Xingchen had fallen into old man Qin's hands except for me. Zhang Jin naturally wouldn't know. And when he entered the imperial capital and found that he couldn't contact Lu Xingchen, what do you think he would do? If it were you, what would you do in such a situation? Qin Feiyong sneered. "What would I do?" Yen Wei frowned and said, "If it were me, I would probably leave immediately or stay to inquire about the situation." "Yes. If it were anyone else, they would probably leave immediately like you. But Zhang Jin is different. He would definitely stay to inquire about the situation."